What's up, Snort Dude crew? It's yours truly, Snort That Dude. Right now, we're about to get into Chicago's deadliest game. THF, Trigga Happy Family. You ain't heard of them? I don't know where you been, under a rock or whatever. But anyway, this is BAYZOO and them. BAYZOO and Lil Law. I'm a handler. Yo, them. Original link to this be down in the description. Go ahead and run it up. Let's get 4,600 likes on this one. Ooh.
Fine line between music and crime. Chicago drill music saw for the first time some of the world's most hardened criminals hopping on the microphone and telling their real stories of life in a gang war. Some of the most famous rappers out of the city have had their activities verified by evidence and cases. King Von, with his rumored 7 bodies to his name, went out in a hail of bullets after trying to fight another gangster rapper from another city, and his close friend Lil Durk is now sat in federal custody awaiting trial, charged with murder for hire for allegedly arranging a hit to get revenge for what happened to Von. But some of the most ruthless and violent gangsters in Chicago haven't had the same shine that these infamous rappers have had, because behind the scenes and behind the music, there's even more serious gangsters who you've likely never even heard of. In today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at one of the deadliest gangs in Chicago history that provided muscle for Lil Durk behind the scenes, but never got the same attention that he got from the music industry, and the stories in this video might shock you. Dozens of heartless murders committed back to back, including ruthless assassinations that betrayed the code of honor and saw shooters taking out their enemies in front of their women and children, and senseless mass shootings where the hitters spinning the block are so desperate to get their ops that they open fire on any crowd of people that they see in their hood without a care for the innocent lives that they might take. The gang war in this story got so bad that even then President Barack Obama had to personally get involved to try and put a stop to the violence in the very same area that raised his wife Michelle. In this story, we'll be covering a lot of tragic murders committed by a tight-knit group of shooters and killers, and the one thing that ties them all together is that they share a bond so close that they're closer than family. And in this video, I'll be introducing you to a family of gangsters you definitely don't want to play with, the Trigga Happy family, aka THF. Content warning. This video is about a sensitive topic involving loss of life. We've removed any graphic content to comply with YouTube's guidelines. We aim to provide informative, factual journalism on a tragic event in the public interest that does not dismiss its seriousness. All clips are used under the doctrine of fair use for news reporting and analysis. Some points made in this video are opinions and theories. I am not responsible for third-party information. If you want to watch my videos uncut and extended, go to patreon.com/traplawross, where you can get those for just $2. Also, you can now watch my new drops on Spotify, so go search me there. Here's the video. The set, now known as THF 46, hails from the Kenwood neighborhood. Although this neighborhood is often counted as being part of the larger Bronzeville district, also known locally as the Low End.
No way! Hey, that's where I went and got Italian Fiesta from! Man!
Kenwood was one of Chicago's most affluent neighborhoods. Starting from the late 1800s, the wealthy elites of Chicago moved into the area, building elegant mansions and luxury apartments. And even a century later, the area is still known for some truly lavish buildings, even being the location where Barack Obama and his family lived during his time as a US Senator between 2005 and 2008. Their old family house was located less than a mile from the corner of 46th and Woodlawn, the THF 46 rep, and literally right in the hood of their mortal enemy, 051 Young Money, but more about them later. However, the neighborhood, like many others across the US, was not immune to the detrimental effects of the Great Depression, which sunk the surrounding area into poverty during the 1930s. By the 1940s, wealthy white elites were abandoning the neighborhood, just as African American families from the nearby Bronzeville, where they had long been confined to by restrictive housing covenants, began moving outward as those barriers finally started to break down. This was followed by the 1950s, where an urban renewal project was begun, making the Hyde Park, directly south of Kenwood, home of the esteemed University of Chicago, which went through a massive and expansive redevelopment. While critics have argued that Kenwood, and particularly the North Kenwood area, home of THF 46, was left out of enjoying the benefits of these plans, essentially creating a barrier between the haves and have-nots. As a result, by the end of the 50s, the area had become known as one of Chicago's rougher areas, and the prime environment for emerging street gangs to take over. The next decades were rough, as gangs, crime, and drug problems plagued the community, despite some efforts being made throughout the decade to renovate the area. And while parts of Kenwood may still look nice, as people from the area, including THF TP, have explained in interviews, it's still dangerous.
How is it over there, like in the area? Like, is it all like buildings, or is it some houses, some buildings?
No, it's nice as hell over there.
Yeah.
Like talking about like now, yeah, it's nice as hell. It was always upscale looking area. It was just the that was in it.
Yeah.
I'm fucked up. It wasn't up over there. That's what it was. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't dirty over there. None.
Right.
So it wasn't, you go over there, it won't even look like happened over there. But it was happening.
One of the earliest gangs to move into
Not going back, bro. I went and got Italian Fiesta from the Kenwood neighborhood, bro. Go back, do your research. Go back, do your research. Anyway, I was none the wiser, as they say. It's to the point where we standing outside looking for shit to do. No cap. That's when we went to the Ross, right across the right. It's like right there. We went to the Ross and shot a video in there. I didn't even know I was in the hood for real.
the area, specifically on 49th and Dorchester, was the Devil's Disciples street gang, who formed a faction called the East Side Disciples there. This faction would reach its peak during the reign of none other than David Barksdale, who would later form the infamous Black Disciples gang. By the 1970s, they were followed by other gangs including the El Ruckans, the religious offshoot of the Black Pea Stone Nation, and the Moroccan tribe, who would soon join the El Ruckans, as well as the conservative Vice Lords. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and the presence of Black Disciples, Gangster Disciples, Black Pea Stones, conservative Vice Lords, and other traditional Chicago gangs still exist in the area today, and it would be in this melting pot of gangs that THF 46 would be established. According to Big Les, who's the father of two notorious Chicago drill figures, Ruger and Scrap, from the Washington Park-based set MOB. Perhaps the first direct predecessor to THF 46 was known as 46 Lawn, which had allegedly been established all the way back in the late 1960s by two brothers who were both Black Pea Stones.
46 Lawn started from two brothers, you know what I'm saying, from the area, you know, 47, you know what I'm saying, 46. They started 46 Lawn back in the days, man, and like all my peoples, my older people, my uncles and they was Stones. My father, two brothers come from Chicago. They was Black Stones, but they was called 46 Lawn Black Stones.
Despite being a GD, at age 13, Big Les was blessed into 46 Lawn, explaining that it didn't matter what gang you were in, as long as you were 46 Lawn, you were considered family.
I was 13 years old. 13. When I got blessed into 46. I was a GD. But we was about...
During the late 2000s and early 2010s, the set from the area had become known as 46 Terror and 46 Woodlawn, which was seemingly started by the younger generation, one of these being Lil Durk's close friend, THF BAYZOO, who was surprisingly a Mickey Cobra, as Big Les would tell on his YouTube channel.
With the 46 Terror, that was a little younger. They up under BAYZOO and them. It's another little crowd. That's where the 46 Terror come in at. That was before the THF. So that's where that come from.
And I ain't gonna lie, bro. I seen BAYZOO in real life before, bro. I seen him in real life at a Smirkio concert. Dude look like one of them niggas that just fight, bro. Like, you know them one that all this nigga know how to do is these. Just throw these. He excel in throwing hands. That's what he look like. You know? And then I heard about him having his jaw broken in the county, and he said, yeah, that was the only nigga that got the best of me. And nobody didn't defute them like that story. Like, you know, motherfuckers like tell you a story and people like, nah, it didn't happen quite like that. Yeah, it wasn't no type of verbiage around this story. You know what I mean? Anyway, why would you lie about getting your jaw broke? You know, but yeah, he seemed like he one of them. He seemed like he one of them.
That's where that come from. The 46 and the 44 THF. That's how the MCs merged with 46, the BDs. BAYZOO is an MC. He's not BD. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but he's an MC.
All the way back in 2009, BAYZOO would post videos on YouTube heavily repping 46 Woodlawn while expressing his extreme disdain for their perhaps oldest ops, the 051 Young Money set.
Look, it's Woodlawn crazy, man. You feel me? Free my man Tay G, free breed, you know, 46 to the dirt. All you very low y'all getting this summer. I seen what you got all on the internet against your man's baby, but look, y'all ain't ready. We in it, man, straight up, Joe. You ain't throwing up these dubs, man, you already know what it is. Young Money, dirty little play partner, you feel me?
Another video from 2009 would also show 2 THF members showing off their gang handshake, repping 4-6 Terror Gang, whilst also expressing their hatred for Young Money.
4-6 Terror, man, check it out. Get your... 4-6 Terror, man. Off 43rd, man. Young Money, Young Money, Young Money. Kill out everybody, man. We 4-6 to the dirt. Oh, we dive out.
And THFBA. The adoption...
I ain't gonna lie. That era is what we know today. Like it's kind of transitioning into another generation for real. I feel like this year alone, this year and a little bit of last year, we seen a emergence of a new generation of drill, and before you know it, bro, we're gonna be calling THF 4-6 something else. You know what I mean? We won't be calling it something else. That's just my opinion on the matter.
Of this name in the hood was likely gradual, and in a December 2011 release song and music video titled White Rocks by 3 THF 4-6 members, THF BAYZOO, THF JB, aka Billa, and Tonebone, would still rep 4-6-2-4 Hit Squad.
Hey, come open the door, right? Yeah. Murder team, man. How my hood murder something. This is easy, man.
Dead, real talk.
Rocks, man. All these non-rapping, man. Straight up.
Hit Squad, stand up.
However, as we know now, this wouldn't be the only THF to form around the same time, because further west from THF's hood, there was a Mickey Cobra hood located around 44th Place and Princeton Avenue, who seemingly first went by the name Suwoo. The roots of this set stretch all the way back to the 1950s, when black families were relocated to the Fuller Park area in large numbers, with racial strife and discrimination leading to the formation of an Egyptian Cobras faction there, with the Fuller Park branch being founded and led by none other than one of Chicago history's most infamous gangsters, Mickey Cogwell, who used to be the leader of the Black P Stone affiliated faction called the Cobra Stones, before eventually, through an internal rivalry, a gang carrying Mickey's name would split away from the Cobra Stones, forming the Mickey Cobras. During the 90s and 2000s, the Fuller Park Mickey Cobras would go on to establish several sets, including the already mentioned Suwoo gang, located on 44th and Princeton, Dog Pound, located on 47th and Princeton, and a whole other host of Mickey Cobra sets from the 44th all the way to the 55th Street along Princeton Avenue. The Suwoo set was represented on the rapping side by guys like Deadliest and Cash, who were also from early on shouted out by members from THF 4-6. Importantly, this Suwoo should not be confused with another set called Suwoo, aka TTB or Train to Blow, from Lake Park Avenue and 39th Street near THF 4-6's hood, who had been beefing with 4-6 since the very early 2010s or even before that. But soon it seems that the Suwoo members from 44th and Princeton would also begin to rep THF, with both THFs from 4-4 and 4-6 also repping each other, and in a music video released in May 2012, Deadliest and Cash were now proudly repping THF. The music video also included members from both THF 4-4 and 4-6. Around the same time, Deadliest would also tweet how his guys invented THF, this playing to the long-held belief amongst some Reddit chiracologists that it was in fact THF 4-4 who were the ones to come up with the name, being the original THF, not THF 4-6. However, because THF 4-6 has clearly been the more known faction since the beginning of the drill movement, there remains much ambiguity as to which version is the truth, and some Redditors have even come up with wild theories about THF 4-4, half seriously wondering if this set even exists, including a humorous claim that THF 4-4 was simply created by THF 4-6 to confuse their ops and lure them out of bounds to their deaths. Redditors have also been equally confused how these two sets would end up coming together, given that their hoods are not very close to each other, and that their members also rep different traditional gang affiliations. According to THF BAYZOO, this connection goes all the way back to the late 2000s, when the guys from around 46th and Woodlawn area, including BAYZOO himself, began hanging out with the guys from the 44th and Princeton, and that the traditional gang alliances didn't mean much at the time in Chicago during the years preceding the drill culture.
We used to hang bad as hell on 46th and Woodlawn, so like, it's a Maz here right there, right now, but we used to hang there 24/7. Like, when we all meet up and come outside, meet me on Woodlawn, you feel me? So we went from 46 to Woodlawn, you know what I'm saying? Then we started hanging on Princeton probably around 2008. Like 2008, them my brothers too, you know what I'm saying? We started hanging down that way. So like, we just put all that shit together and just made you know what I'm saying? Back then, like, everybody be saying gangs in Chicago, that they be getting on the yelling BDGD war, all that. Like, that's cool, but like, Chicago is full of sets, bro. Like, it don't matter. It's a lot of blocks that got different gangs in them. So you can't literally just say, oh, they gang bang. When you gang banging, it's this set and this set and they oppositions.
Yeah.
Right.
If anything, they set tripping. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
Chicago never gave a about what gang you is. Like, it's all type of gangs on my block right now. You get what I'm saying?
However, another infamous THF member, THF Bra, who later had a falling out with THF BAYZOO, would counter this narrative during his DJU interview, claiming that he was in fact the person that brought the guys from the 4-6 and 4-4 together, as he had friends from both hoods, mentioning particularly an infamous THF 4-4 shooter Mickey Lord, who some claim has up to 8 kills under his belt, and who even Lil Durk has shouted out in his music several times throughout his career.
Now, I heard you say earlier in our phone call that, you know, originally you from O Block. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But
That's in my heart.
when we see your name, bruh, throughout the blogs, you know, we see the letters THF in front of them, and we see THF, bruh, right? So,
Right.
where does your
I'm
THF affiliation come from?
Oh, you know, I put THF together. You know, they just came up with a name. You know, Princeton with 4-6 to me. You know, Mikey Lord, my rapper. You know, Mikey Lord. You know, like I told him that game. You know that 4-6 that Bruno do mutual friends that I had from down there that I love. You know, that I still got love for. But you know, Princeton and 4-6 together because of bruh, not because of Zoo. You know, he didn't even come up with the name, but he seems to always claim, you know, what we build. You know, what we build. He claiming like he the man of what we built. You know, when he ain't put none of it together. Not O Block, Laron, 4-6, or THF. He ain't put none of them puzzles together. You know, this came from me and a couple of other that I don't want to mention their name because they might not want me to mention their name.
Whatever the truth may be, both THFs have stayed close until this very day, including numerous members who would become major names in the drill culture. On the THF 4-6 side, some of their most known members include guys like the already mentioned THF BAYZOO and his little brother Gutter, THF Twiller, THF BA, THF Rome, THF TP, THF Billa, and THF Bra, who is also known as O Block Bra or Dark Gang Bra due to his numerous affiliations. Then there's also guys like THF Omerta, aka Kino, THF G Baby, THF Muda, THF Twin, THF Lil Twin, THF Gino aka Trouble, THF Gucci aka Gucci the Menace, THF Westbrook, THF Puncho, THF Dre Money, 30 Boy STK, THF Space, THF Dada, THF Lil Ant, Walt Dilla's son THF Raheem, THF Bobo, THF Aki, THF Philly, THF Lil Gutter, who's the little brother of BAYZOO and Gutter, and many more. Meanwhile, on the THF 4-4 side, there are guys like the already mentioned rappers Deadliest and Cash, and the infamous shooter Mickey Lord, as well as their current main rapper THF Lil Law, and another rapper called Pooty 4-4, THF T-Man, THF Lil Mech, THF Day Day, and THF Nuck, as well as numerous others. However, the Mickey Cobra sets along the Princeton Avenue and Fuller Park are all closely affiliated, and many members seemingly rep all the sets from 44th all the way to 55th, with one Redditor claiming to be from the area, saying how these sets have always been one family, but simply different branches, which would stop the police from ever getting all of them captured. Right. This is also likely why main THF 4-4 rapper THF Lil Law has the backside of his 44th chain include an engraving stating 44th to 55th, while in his music, like in the hit song I'm a Handler, he reps both THF 4-4 and THF 4-6, but also 4-9. And he's even posted music on his YouTube channel by artists from this area, such as a young rapper called Lil Sosa, aka Sosa49, who is part of a Mickey Cobra faction from the Fuller Park, repping the 4900 block of Princeton Avenue. So now that we know the history of THF and their main members, let's take a look at what came next, when a little known rapper from further south called Chief Keef, from the infamous Parkway Gardens, aka O Block, would become a global sensation, lifting the rap scene of the entire city of Chicago to a level that it had never experienced before. But in the
so these folks done got 3 different hoods in they set, and they click 4-4, 4-6, 4-9. Really, that's all them.
Process, unfortunately also having a falling out with his old friends from THF. The rise of Chief Keef was meteoric, peaking in December 2012, with Keef's release of his debut studio album Finally Rich. But on the heels of his success, numerous other rappers and gang sets would also begin to receive some significant local, national, and even international attention. Most notable examples of course being guys like Lil Reese and Lil Durk from the Lamron set in Inglewood, Keef's cousin Fredo Santana from the Front Street set in Washington Park, and G Herbo and Lil Bibby from the No Limit Muskegon Boys NLMB set in South Shore, just to name a few. The common common denominator with these artists being that they and their sets were all directly connected to the unstoppable movement around Keith through their affiliation with either Keith himself or his set O-Block, famously located in the Parkway Gardens housing projects on the 6400 block of Martin Luther King Drive. And although lesser known at the time, THF, particularly THF 46, were also part of these sets, who were very close with O-Block and other affiliated sets since the very early drill era and likely long before that, with one of the strongest individual links between O-Block and THF 46 undoubtedly being the already mentioned THF Bra, who repped both sets, as his old Facebook handle clearly states. Bra also has a particularly close relationship to Chief Keef himself, as both had grown up in the infamous 6217 Calumet building before relocating to the nearby Parkway Gardens when the Calumet building was eventually demolished in the mid-2000s. But Bra is also commonly known as maybe one of the craziest members to ever come out of the Chicago drill scene, who would make himself infamous in the streets of Chicago and eventually also on social media that had become fascinated with the drill culture. Despite receiving a very long sentence all the way back in 2011 that he's still serving, his charges even included a conspiracy to murder an alleged rival from the Met Boys set known as Renzo, real name Lorenzo Beasley, who Bra would allegedly gun down in a drive-by shooting in July 2011. There are also numerous crazy stories about Bra that have either been discussed on platforms like Reddit or directly told by people he grew up with, both friends and foes, with stories ranging from Bra accidentally.
See, some niggas deserve to be in a mental institution. They gotta get with the slow, gotta get with the slower. And slow mingle or something. I don't know.
Taking out the eye of Chief Keef's best friend T-Slick when they were kids, to Bra even allegedly knocking out Keef himself and throwing him in a dumpster.
What do you think is like the wildest Bra story that you heard or that you seen?
Man, I'm about to say, forget what I heard, what I seen. The wildest thing that I seen is him, man, putting Keef to sleep and throwing him in the garbage. You ever seen somebody get put to sleep first off, let alone get thrown in the garbage? Bro, I was scared of bruh. I'm not them. I tell bruh, please. See me, I put myself out, hey bro, I'm scared of you, bro. Please don't do that to me. Right. Cause I was scared like, bro, you might try to put me to sleep, but what if I die? That's what I was scared of. But man, he putting folks to sleep and threw him in the dumpster.
People have even made compilations of all the times that people from the Chicago drill scene have talked about Bra's crazy antics.
But did, bro? Why the f would you have an iron rod and hit T-Slick in his eye like this? He hit his eye, bro. What we see roll, DJU? An eyeball. What the fuck?
Me and my homie, you know, we f***ing around. He f***ed around and swung the little stick, swiped across my put out ever since.
So you talking about Bra?
Yeah.
They pull up, hop out on us. We all out there shooting like that. They scripted whole neck. They robbed all us. I ended up seeing Bra like 2 weeks later. He, hey, little butter, what's up, boy? He, hey, boy, you want your little $100 back, boy? Oh, my daddy, let me get that.
Hey, boy, you want your little $100 back? Oh, it would have been so hot. Oh, I would have been so hot. Y'all just do not know that would have sent me off the rocker. Hey, boy, you want your little $100? My little $100. What?
Bang. Run them in there with knives on BD around necks. I seen bro one time, bro, going. I'm like, man, what the f wrong with dude? I see this, what the f wrong with this? Then a motherfucker told me like, man, that's crazy. Like, I see. I'm glad I ain't never getting into with that.
If you thought that the stories about Bra would end in him getting locked up, well, you would be wrong, because that's a saga all of its own, ranging from several jail fight videos getting leaked online to even a video uploaded online by the official Cook County Jail account showing Bra holding his cellmate hostage armed with a shank before proceeding to attack the guards with the most feared jailhouse weapon of them all, the infamous Glock Dookie.
Kenyatta.
I swear to God, I'm a killer.
Who?
You know, I'm a stand. I swear to God. Burn your stand in his neck. Burn your stand in his neck. The suit said I can, the dog said I can stay. The suit said I can stand in his neck.
What, a pen?
I'm gonna kill it.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm gonna stand in his neck. Go ahead.
Step out.
I ain't stepping out.
Step out.
I'm not stepping out.
Step out.
Man, get that light on my face.
Nope.
Screwed up the lock. I'm not stepping out.
So you mean to tell me that you have a weapon in your hand right now and you're holding this other detainee hostage, is that correct?
I'm gonna kill his. Go get the suit.
OC spray has been deployed into 3102. Do it again. All right, that's cool. That's cool. Detainee Kenyatta's now holding the door. Second burst of OC has been deployed. Detainee just assaulted sergeant with urine and feces.
But that's enough of bruh for now. But when it comes to the relationship between THF...
That's why I tell y'all, jailhouse is a crazy house. And if y'all want to go there willingly, hey, be my guest, gang, because I'm staying free.
and Chief Keef beyond bruh, Keef himself would shout out THF 46 in songs at least as early as 2011, like in his first local Chicago hit song titled Bang, where he lists the sets he's affiliated with, THF 46 being one of those. THF Rome would later explain to the YouTuber Jeff Filmed It how he and Keef used to be close, and how he used to be in the same class with one of Keef's best friends, Ball Out, while Rome and Keef were often dating the same girls.
Do you have a relationship with Chief Keef?
No, Sosa used to be my boy. Sosa used to be my boy. Like me, him and Ball, I was in the same class as Dad. This when they sent Sosa back to elementary school, they said he I don't know, he supposed to have been in high school long. What's going on? But yeah, man, Sosa. It's crazy because man, Sosa used to be done to talk to like mostly all the same.
But Keef also seemingly had at least some kind of connection with THF 44, with one of their most respected members, the previously mentioned Mickey Lord, making an appearance in the 2011 music video by Keef and Lil Reese for the song In This remix. Anyway, as mentioned in the earlier chapter, THF, both 44 and 46, had certainly been putting out music, even before Keef would make the entire Chicago drill scene blow up globally with his March 2012 hit song I Don't Like. But the drill music style that Keef popularized would soon also heavily influence the sound of the THF rappers, with one of the first to put out music embracing this new style being the rapper THF TP, who would drop music like the THF anthem titled Trigga Happy in September 2012 together with a music video, where he would rep his set to the fullest together with a banging beat that was heavily inspired by the new drill sound. A few years later, TP would go on to release...
I was just about to say this, man. TP was the guy that made the Bus Stop song. And I swear to God, bro, in real time, I really didn't understand the drill movement, bro, and like the whole little things that was going on in Chicago. But as I further learned, like, it was real heavy. It was real heavy.
One of the all-time Chicago drill classics, the brutal diss song Bus Stop, which we'll discuss more later. Another early THF drill pioneer was THF Muda, who also begun releasing music around 2012, funnily enough, rapping in his November 2012 remix of Lil Wayne's No Worries song how he's NBA never broke again, years before NBA, Youngboy would popularize this acronym. Muda at this point was also repping a crew called 2Effing Official.
YouTube. Let me get in the history. Tell them YouTube, type in TFO Mood on YouTube, my music gonna pop up.
Check it out. The guys right here, this is Nut Shorty right here, gonna get you on them bars real soon. And y'all know we got Waka Flocka, LEP, Bo Deal, Capo, Boss Woo. Everybody's on Stony Island. You ain't official. You ain't official, right? Cold Steel, Block Boys. You ain't official if you ain't on Stony Island DVD. Global Gangster, shout out to Global Gangster.
You're not official. TFO, we official, man.
However, he was also already heavily affiliated with THF.
Big Beats. We gonna do this.
Shout out to Block, man. Shout out to.
And we got good beats.
And we got good beats.
We got good boy beats.
He would soon change his artist name to Muda Crowd, before eventually becoming THF Muda and dropping drill classics like the 2015 songs Homicide and the infamous diss song 757K, which we'll discuss more later. Other THF artists from the early drill days include guys like THF Puncho, THF Dre Money, THF T Murder, who would later become known as THF Lil Twin, and his brother THF Twin, THF Westbrook and Gucci the Menace, aka THF THF Gucci, THF Billa, 30 Boy STK, and THF Fat Shorty. But unfortunately, while THF 46 in particular would always stay close with many of the sets that Keef was originally affiliated with, including particularly Lil Durk and his OTF crew that THF had been very close with since the very beginning of the drill movement and even before that. But the same wouldn't be true with THF and Keef and his Glow Gang crew, who would end up having a major falling out within a few years of Keef's ascent into stardom. In February 2014, Chief Keef would release perhaps his most classic diss track titled War, where he would go after all his ops with brutal bars, dissing numerous dead people from rival gangs by name, something which was actually somewhat rare for Keef outside of his propensity of always mentioning how he was smoking on Tuka, a dead member of rival gang STL. But to the surprise of everyone, Keef would continue these bars by rapping how he was going to also run up on THF 46 hood and leave someone flat dead. This lyric would confuse many people, and years later during his 2023 No Jumper interview, THF BAYZOO would even claim that this wasn't a diss at all and that people were simply misunderstanding the lyrics, with Keef actually saying that he was going to shoot any op who would dare pull up on THF's hood.
I got a fan question real quick. Can we just do this one? There was an old Chief Keef song where he said, run up on 46, leave him flat dead. What did that mean? Or why would there be any conflict there?
Man, I don't, the media took that what they took it as, man. I don't think Chief Keef was dissing us, man. Like,
really?
No, he wasn't dissing us. He was saying, run up on bro now, you're gonna get your flatline, you feel me? They took it how they took it because Chief Keef was in tour with Fetty Wap once upon a time.
Really?
And he was saying, pull up on the Zoo, who the you know, Fetty Wap was calling himself Zoo Crew.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he said, I'm gonna blow New Jersey up. So when he made that Finito song, the fans felt like he was saying, oh yeah, he stretching 46, who out the bam. It was a little fake little back and forth, man, so before, but he wasn't dissing us, we wasn't dissing him. Like, we don't, that's the internet, you feel me? The internet to run with it, like.
However, this was quite clearly not the case, because Keef would keep on dissing THF on several leaked songs that were likely recorded around the same time as War, one being the song See You Later, where he would once again mention running up on THF 46's block, ready to shoot them, but that they're never out there, and that Glow Gang never sees them, although his pistol would like to meet them. While in another song called Aim for None, featuring the Glow Gang members Tado and Tarantino, Keef would once again talk about shooting up 46's hood. And while BAYZOO may have been attempting to squash the beef during recent years, he too has openly dissed Chief Keef on social media before, including during one Instagram Live in 2019, where he would openly say that it's F Chief Keef, adding that Keef didn't run Chicago, but BAYZOO did, and saying that Keef was considered a bitch in his hometown.
I'm the real Chicago Papa. I'm still chasing.
He know deep down, like, what's up, though. You feel me? That's still my boy. Ball out, my boy. Ball out, no, man. Ball out. You know stuff.
And Keef wasn't the only one, as other Glow Gang members would aim disses towards 46, including the late rapper Capo, who would rap in one unreleased song how he's going to pull up on 46 with his car doors up and shoot them. And this may not have been simply rapping, because according to Tay 600 aka Tay Capone, who's from the 600 set that Keef is still connected with, and who witnessed a lot of these early beefs firsthand, Capo was actually in the streets of Chicago fighting Keef's beefs at this time, together with another late Glow Gang member, Trey Savage.
Savage was one of them folk where he took a lot of personal folk. I ain't even gonna lie, folk. When what's happening to social them folk, Savage used to be one of them folk who used to be actually like in the field about it, to say the least. I ain't gonna speak on a lot of folks that did behind a lot that happened with Glow Gang, but on Lil Steve, when Tato got robbed and before them cribs got broke in and they robbed Soul and all of that, bro, Savage was getting in the field behind that. So he wasn't doing no talking for real. He ain't like the Wolf. Now he did Wolf with the internet a couple times, but they was trying to play with them. But other than that, on Lil Steve, bro, Savage was getting in the field behind that, bro. He was never too big in his eyes to get in the field and get in that glacier. And Cap was kind of like that too, folk. Cap from the Met Builders, he took a lot to the heart when they was trying for him. You know what I'm saying? But Savage, folk, Savage was busting his gun, bro. He wasn't no, oh yeah, I'm signed, I got this going on, we lit. No, folks was in, like, he was like, really getting in the mix about that. On Folding Gray, I ain't even gonna lie, folk. So, with a lot of shit with Savage, folk, I ain't even gonna lie, folk. Like, it kind of hurt me, folk, because not only did we lose a real face and a real member, folk, and like that, but we lost a real gangster, folk.
According to some Reddit disciples, the incident that would lead to the beef would in fact include not just THF members, but also the infamous former Welch World shooter and current rapper Tay Savage, who would indeed imply on social media that back in the day he had beaten up and robbed Tato, with one Redditor claiming that after this incident, both Capo and Trey Savage would ride down to THF's hood with some heavy artillery to get back for their friend. But of course, whatever beef THF may have been having with Glow Gang, that pales in comparison to the actual street wars that they would get involved in during the heyday of the drill era, leading to the drill Reddit community almost unanimously claiming that just one of their many beefs, their decade-spanning rivalry with the 051 Young Money set, to be the bloodiest war in the history of Chicago drill. As already mentioned, THF 46's perhaps earliest rivalry when it comes to the Chicago gang wars was with the majority Mickey Cobra set 051 Young Money, who were located south of THF's hood, their main corner being on 51st and Cottage Grove, right on the northeast corner of Washington Park. This rivalry is not only one of the deadliest drill era beefs captured on social media, with disses between these sets appearing on platforms like YouTube and Facebook already at the end of the 2000s, but it would eventually also become perhaps the deadliest rivalry of the drill era, killing numerous teens and young men while destroying the lives of untold families in its wake. According to THF BAYZOO, the animosity between the two camps goes as far back as around to the mid to late 2000s, with BAYZOO admitting during one Instagram live how he had personally been on 051's necks as early as 2007.
I personally been on y'all since 07. Me, you know that. I'm talking about 2012. So,
And it wouldn't take until the following year when bodies would begin to drop. Most gang members of the 2010s in Chicago would truly begin losing their friends following the start of the drill era, when the sudden boom of music videos centered around the extremely violent and highly disrespectful lyrics against rival gangs would take over platforms like YouTube, with the increasing back and forths on social media further escalating the wars. But with 051 Young Money members, their first truly traumatic year would come already in 2008, when they would end up losing 3 beloved members in just 1 year, one of these likely launching the still ongoing war against THF. Some attribute the start of the war to the March 2008 murder of a well-respected 051 Young Money member, 20-year-old Carlos Merrills, aka Lil Los, who was allegedly killed by a man named France Witten, known in the streets as Franco. However, Los's murder appears not to have been related to the beef between 051 and THF, but rather it involved the Mickey Cobra OGs from 051's hood, whom Los was a part of, and Franco's friends, who were gangster disciples from elsewhere, trying to allegedly sell drugs on Los's turf, as later court documents would claim. These GDs possibly being from the hood known as No Love City, as a rapper named TP would rap in his 2009 tribute song to Los how he was going to shoot the guy who killed Los, before adding how there's no more love for no love as a result of Los's murder. On the other hand, the shooter in the case, Franco, was, according to Redditors, not a THF 46 member, but an OG from a set known as Drek's Side, who are located south of 051, and known to be a set primarily claiming the historical Titanic Stone Gang, a branch of the Black Pea Stone Nation, while also being the last set left in the gentrified Hyde Park neighborhood. Older THF members like BAYZOO and Billa would even pay their respects to Los during an Instagram live, showing there was no hate towards him while still dissing other 051 members.
Los is my man. Los been a gangster. You was just his rider.
Oh, hey, on one grade, bro.
I ain't gonna take it from Los. Los was a gangster. You was his fan. You was his homie. On Kyle, you went with his.
You was Los flunky on gutter grade.
He know that. He know that.
However, THF's older members' respect for Los seems to have been lost on some of the younger guys who now regularly diss him, likely due to the respect that Los still gets amongst 051, who begun to call their hood Los City in his honor.
I was smoking Los. Yeah, I heard it's his day. I'm on the 6 every day.
In August 2008, about 5 months after the murder of Los, 18-year-old Lance Youngblood, an alleged 051 member, was shot and killed at a gas station all the way in Racine, Wisconsin, 1.5-hour drive north from Chicago, in an incident that had seemingly nothing to do with the gang war back home. 051 would now also become known as Lance Land, but perhaps their biggest loss of 2008 was still ahead of them, and this time it would be linked directly to THF. On the 27th of September 2008, at around 12:50 p.m., a verbal argument started.
See, McDonald's is not a safe place, and that's crazy, because it's forever a safe place where I'm at, bro. Every McDonald's I've been to been safe. And Chicago, I ain't been to McDonald's in Chicago. There's so much other things to eat. But McDonald's in Chicago is not safe, bro. Every time we do one of these rappermentaries on Chicago, it got a McDonald's in it, and it's ticking me off. It's ticking me off. No, not really. But on some real stuff, man, it's like it goes down at a McDonald's. Let's go ahead.
between 051 and THF members inside a McDonald's on 47th Street, which would then continue outside on the parking lot. It was there that a member of THF named Aki Walton would allegedly pull out a gun and shoot a member of 051 known as Zico, real name Isaiah Walker, multiple times before running from the scene. Zico would be taken to a hospital where he would unfortunately succumb to his injuries the following day. Aki was quickly identified and charged for the brazen daylight killing, but he would end up doing the race, followed by a 7-month nationwide manhunt until the FBI finally arrested him in Indianapolis. Aki would end up receiving 27 years in prison after being sentenced for the murder of Zico, time that he's still serving today, while the young 051 members, who clearly held Zico as a sort of leader of their set, now adopted the name Zico World for their hood following his passing. However, the Zico World name appears to be less commonly used, possibly due to the fact that there were also 2 other recent deaths of very beloved 051 members that very same year. Still, Zico clearly held special status within the set, and in 2011, the 051 rapper Lil Mark even released a dedicated tribute track called Zico World along with a music video, rapping in the chorus how 051 wasn't hiding and proclaiming 2011 to be Zico World's year.
If they say we ain't out here, they lying, man.
While also mentioning how they were still planning on doing drills on So Icy, aka Welch World, and THF 46, which at the time was still better known as 46 Hit Squad. However, just like 051 wasn't hiding, but proudly hanging on the shopping plaza at the corner of 51st and Cottage Grove, THF wasn't hiding either, and they even continued visiting that very same McDonald's on 47th Street with an old video showing a young THF BAYZOO and other members posted up right across the street from it.
Hey, what's up, baby? Hey, what's going on, baby? Hey, boo. How you doing, man? Hey, Tay, what's up, baby? What's going on, baby? Low end or no end, right, bro? That's right, baby. It's crazy, baby.
And you got that mafia too.
Low end or no end. That's what he said.
I quit. I'm in the car with T-Ball.
The Zico World song was of course not missed by THF, with members like Twiller even trolling 051 at the time by posting the video on his Facebook while quoting the chorus in the caption. And as the years went by, the mentioning of Zico would of course not stop, but continue amongst THF members, whilst also turning more and more disrespectful, like THF Space, later posting on Facebook how Zico's death brought him to tears because he thought that the McDonald's where he died would be closed down as a result, and that Zico died hungry before he could eat his meal. Zico would also later be dissed religiously by THF's affiliates like O-Block, 600 and Lamron, with the 600 rapper Rondo No. 9 even releasing a song in 2014 titled Zico Pack, which is particularly petty given that Rondo would have been about 11 years old when Zico lost his life, while his set 600 held from the complete opposite side of Washington Park than 051, meaning that there's a fair chance that Rondo had never even seen Zico, particularly even that there was seemingly no beef between 051 and the area that Rondo hailed from until several years after Zico's death. But then again, it's also understandable given that 051 members would allegedly end up killing Rondo's best friend and 600's most promising rapper LA Capone a year before the release of that song in 2013, something we'll discuss more in detail later. And of course, THF's most famous affiliate, Lil Durk, would also diss Zico on several occasions, as would Durk's most famous signee to his OTF label, King Von from O-Block.
Is shooting light or shooting strong? Yeah, the little Tuga, Zico, T3, Dooski, Wolski, almost.
Despite the importance of Zico to 051 Young Money, it would allegedly take them a few years to get back for THF, this get back eventually coming in 2011. Coming into the 2010s, THF 46 would experience a couple important losses in their hood in quick succession, much like 051 had experienced in 08. First, in April 2011, 18-year-old Quinton Turner, aka Quint, who was allegedly a member of THF's close affiliates, the 5th Ward set, was gunned down in a drive-by shooting where 2 others were also injured. Quint was shot in the head during the incident, which took place at the 800 block near the corner of 46th and Cottage Grove. Later that same month, Quint would be mentioned in an article by the New York Times, which discussed the success of the Chicago's South Shore drill team, whose member Rodney Nelson was a childhood friend of Quint. Rodney would tell how Quint had tried to escape the street violence through basketball, but nevertheless, staying in a neighborhood plagued by gang violence would become his undoing. 5th Ward and also THF 46, aka 46 Hit Squad at the time, would begin to call their hood Quint City in his honor. But meanwhile, people allegedly responsible for Quint's death would mercilessly diss him and claim the kill, this set being none other than 051 Young Money. And as people on Reddit would later note, 051 member Kiddo would practically admit his set was behind the murder on Facebook, where he would directly state that they drilled Quinton. 051 member Montana would even boast about the murder on the day of Quint's funeral, saying how it had been a one-shot kill, perhaps even indicating that he had been the trigger man. The following month, in May 2011, the tragedy would continue when one of 46 Hit Squad's most respected members and BAYZOO's little brother, Gudda, real name Malik Wiley, would seemingly accidentally end it all inside the 4624 building after pointing a gun he thought was empty at his own head and pulling the trigger. In his DJU interview, BAYZOO would years later talk about the trauma that Gudda's tragic passing left on him, including him having to be the one to take care of the funeral preparations based on the family's Islamic faith.
And one of your brothers, when I was doing my research, named Gudda.
Yeah.
And Gudda passed away.
May 24, 2011.
Okay.
For sure.
How old were you at that point?
Well, how old? Like 21? Yeah, I was like 21.
Oh, how old was he? I'm sorry.
17. Yeah, like 17.
17.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did that affect you? You know,
it fucked me up mentally, like physically and emotionally. You know what I'm saying? Like it's something I had to cope with. Like that was my first time experiencing, like, you know what I'm saying, by me being the hard out of the family. You know, we all Muslim or whatever, so you know what I'm saying, you got to bury them within a certain time or whatever. So, you know, he was in the house, the gun accidentally went off and shot him in the head or whatever, you know what I'm saying? That's how he passed away. So, like, wasn't nobody in my family, as far as the immediate family, who was strong enough to bathe them and wash them up and get them prepared for the services or whatever. So, like, that experience stuck with me for the rest of my life. Like, I never experienced doing all that myself, but I had to get him out of the freezer at the morgue and wash the blood out his dress, put cotton swabs where the bullet hole came, the entrance and the out. Like I had to wash him up. Like I had to experience it, man. My right hand man, got it. You know what I'm saying? We bathed little bro up, got him together for his services or whatever. So me just experiencing that, that's why I let everything out. Like at the services, I had to be strong for the family. Like I still feel like right now to this day I ain't mourn how I supposed to mourn. You feel me? But like it all came up out of me that day when I had to bathe him. You know what I'm saying? Like I ain't never experienced something like that, like up close and personal. Seeing his brains hanging out his head, pushing the meat back in his skull and like that. Mentally for real, like.
Again, the members of THF 46 would pay tribute to Gudda by beginning to call their set the Gudda World. A week after Gudda's death, a murder would take place in the Fuller Park neighborhood, the home of THF 44 and their other Mickey Cobra affiliates, when a group of men were seen walking into a gangway on the 5500 block of South Princeton, where an altercation would take place, leading to 22-year-old Malik Dunlap being gunned down and later pronounced dead at hospital. Malik was known in the streets as Big Freaky, and while his exact gang affiliations have been debated, he appeared to be the least associated with 051 Young Money, whose members would pay tribute to him on social media. A few days after Freaky's murder, 051 member Montana would make a post on Facebook dissing THF 46, to which Twiller from 46 would respond by dissing numerous 051 members who were dead, including Freaky. This would get the female 051 member Big A to respond directly, accusing THF of killing Freaky, saying that Freaky had simply been someone the 051 members had gone to school with, basically saying that THF was always killing innocents, while 051 were killing the most beloved members of THF. THF 46 member Bucky was eventually arrested for the murder, but according to Reddit sources, there wouldn't actually be enough evidence to fully charge him. But unfortunately from here, the killing would only continue, because only a few months later, on the 16th of July 2011, 20-year-old Tony McCoy, known by his friends and family as Lil Tony, will be gunned down on the 4700 block of South Woodlawn Avenue. Some years later, a local TV show called Case Files Chicago would produce an entire episode focused on Tony's case, where they would also provide a full reenactment of the murder, explaining how Tony had left his family home and gone out with a friend for a short while, and as he was heading back home with the friend around 1 p.m, a blue car suddenly approached them.
As they're walking back towards his house on 47th Street by Woodlawn, they observed a blue vehicle occupied by at least 3 individuals. One of the individuals, we believe is the rear passenger, exited the vehicle and approached with a handgun. Tony and Jeremy observed this and began to run towards a driveway.
I kept standing in the window looking out the window because she was running late. I left from the window, I walked away from the window, and I heard the gunfire.
The passenger that exited used a handgun, began firing, and struck Tony, fatally wounded him. Once Tony fell to the ground, the offender walked up to him again and took a couple more shots at him.
Tony's murder was the latest in a wave of violence that had swept through the neighborhoods of Kenwood and Hyde Park since April 2011, when Quint had been gunned down, causing much concern in these neighborhoods, where violence, according to local newspapers, had been relatively rare in recent years until 2011. Chicago police, on the other hand, had their answers ready, blaming the recent killings on wannabe gangs, mentioning by name none other than 051 Young Money and 46 Terror, the other name that THF would go by, besides 46 Hit Squad. However, the family, who were understandably distraught about the murder of their beloved son, claimed that Lil Tony was not involved involved in gangs whatsoever, and instead was looking forward to going to college. However, investigative reports of the
See, and that's the saddest part. Like the niggas the people that's not even in the gangs, bro. The people that's not even in the gangs, they just kind of loosely affiliated with, or just be around sometimes, or just live in the area, bro. It like, come on now, like we got so many gangsters out there that's actually playing gangster or doing gangster stuff. Like, go get them.
PD would paint a very different picture, and from the very first incident report, Tony was portrayed as a gangbanger, and was even allegedly known to try and recruit new members to his gang, this gang allegedly being 4-6 Terror. However, at least one witness description of Tony appears not to match the actual profile of Tony McCoy from the height to the hairstyle, leaving at least some ambiguity to the possibility that the person trying to recruit youngsters in the neighborhood to the gang was the same Tony. Meanwhile, the shooter was described by one witness as being a male around 19 to 20 years old, 5'8", and 165 pounds, with a low-cut wave hairstyle and a medium complexion. The investigators would also learn that a few days after the murder, someone had slipped a note under the apartment door of the victim's mother, which would describe the shooter as an 18-year-old male who belonged to the 051 Young Money set, had short twists in his hair, and had just got out of jail, while also describing the motive for the murder being 051's beef with 4-6 Terror, where Tony had simply ended up being an innocent casualty. This case would remain unsolved for years, but the Chicago police would keep slowly building the case, and still conducting new interviews almost a decade later, like one in December 2019, during which one witness would state that he had gotten a good look at the shooter at the time, but didn't talk to the detectives at first due to the street code, while adding that now he was finally willing to identify the suspect because that person had passed away, and claiming the streets took care of it. Finally, the following year in 2020, the Chicago police would consider the case exceptionally cleared, concluding that both the shooter and the driver had since passed away, the shooter on the 14th of March 2014, and the driver on the 10th of November 2011. Based on these details, it wouldn't take long for the Reddit Chiracologists to piece together the suspect's alleged identities, inferring that the shooter had been none other than Lil Mark, real name Mark Campbell, 051 Young Money's most known rapper at the time, while the driver would allegedly be an 051 member known as T Streets, real name Tariq Mahdi. Lil Mark had indeed been rocking short twists at the time of the murder, as well as having been released from juvie not long before it, as Mark was still 17 at the time of the murder, not 18 as the letter to Little Tony's mother had claimed, having been born on March the 31st, 1994. But the most shocking revelation in hindsight would be Mark's social media posts directly after allegedly murdering Lil Tony, because already that very same night, he would post on Facebook how his heart was empty, receiving some concerned messages from people close to him who likely didn't realize just how cold-hearted Mark had really been. And Mark would keep posting early the following morning, simply stating that he was out here drilling. Another classic case of self-snitching from the early days of drill, with this being the same era that King Von would have also been often updating his social media directly after catching alleged bodies. I covered dozens of tweets that Von made after alleged murders in my 3.5-hour documentary about him, but this goes to show people were really Facebook posting about their murders on all sides of the Chicago gang war. A few days after the murder of Lil Tony, Mark would even warn people around him that they better keep their heads up, likely expecting that THF was going to try and avenge Tony's death. But that wasn't exactly the case, because THF didn't in fact consider Lil Tony their member, which perhaps puts even more credence to the claim that Tony wasn't in fact a gang member, just like his family had tried to tell the police and the media. For example, the following year, 051's most infamous shooter, 051 MELLY, whose alleged murders I've also covered in depth on a video on this channel, would attempt to rile up a THF member on Twitter by taunting him about Tony and Quinn, to which the THF member would reply saying that it's F Tony and that he wasn't part of the gang. But regardless of whether or not Tony was part of THF, he really was just a young man from the neighborhood who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. His death was another enormous tragedy for another Chicago family, made only worse by the fact that the family would never receive closure by catching the assailants.
My son was 20 years old. He was just starting to live his life. What right does someone have to take somebody's life? God give us life. Who are you to decide it's time for this person to leave? I mean, this has destroyed our family. His father, you know, is not the same. We'll never be the same person that we were, the same people that we were. It changes who you are. So it's like, it's a dominic effect when you take somebody's life. You know, it's not just him, it's friends and family. So if anybody has any information, they should come forward. They should tell.
And unfortunately, the deadly 2011 wasn't yet over, because a few months later, 051 Young Money would also end up losing yet another member.
Just because he
homicide that has never been solved. This being someone I mentioned earlier, T Streets, aka Tariq Mahdi, who would seemingly end up facing street justice before the police would catch up to him. Just past midnight on November the 10th, 2011, T Streets was driving on South LaSalle Street between Garfield Boulevard and 57th Street in the Washington Park neighborhood, far from his own hood and close to the areas controlled by THF's affiliates like the 600 set. This was a particularly abandoned part of the neighborhood and a perfect place to commit a crime like murder. And indeed, it would be here when a silver sedan would pass his car and someone inside would open fire, hitting T Streets in the face, causing him to drive off the road into a grass field where he would end up passing away from his injuries, while a witness sitting in their own car at the end of the block would claim to see the silver sedan fleeing the scene westbound. And as I've mentioned in a previous video all about the 600 gang, there are at least two main theories online about who was involved in this murder. Some believe this to be the first murder in the war between 600 and 051 Young Money, with the killer being the 600 member M Thang, who had lost his own brother D Thang a few months earlier and might have been looking for revenge, although D Thang's killer was in fact caught and would end up being from the set known as Jaro City. Yet the other theory points the finger strongly towards THF 46, whose members have made some incredibly self-incriminating posts, like this tweet from THF Trouble from 2014, saying how he remembers how he and THF Twiller caught T Streets lacking. However, while some 051 members have seemingly also indicated that T Streets was indeed killed by THF, others have made more mysterious posts, like claiming that T Streets was essentially backdoored and set up by someone. Other 051 members have also later pointed out how every rival set was seemingly claiming to have killed him, which seems true given that even one member of O Block, the rapper Ray Rilla, would later rap in his 2021 song 23 Dead Ops how T Streets got killed for trying to tweak with his block, while King Von referenced the murder in his 2020 track I Am What I Am, seemingly implying that T Streets was set up by his ops after doing a peace treaty. T Streets' murder would end up being one more cold case in Chicago's long list of unsolved homicides. And intense debate continues online to this day, with multiple unproven theories on who might have been responsible for his death, with even the people participating in these debates admitting that the truth most likely will never come out. 2011 had been a particularly bloody year in the war between THF and 051, but stepping into 2012 and beyond, the war would truly reach to the next level, and not just in the number of murders, but in the amount of dissing, as the massive popularity of the drill music in Chicago would slowly begin to make these wars fought on the streets go viral online. On the 28th of May 2012, at around 1:20 AM, police would find a man unresponsive on the street in the 5000 block of South St. Lawrence Avenue. The man, 35-year-old Robert McNair, was also known as Lil Chief, an OG from 051 Young Money's hood, where this murder had taken place, and the police would immediately consider this incident gang-related. However, according to reports from family and friends, Lil Chief had been making an effort to move forward from his criminal past, and had gotten a job as a day laborer while also stopping smoking and drinking and devoting himself to his children, even having plans of getting married. Online rumors, however, would years later tie this murder to the THF member Bob O, although the evidence linking THF to the hit would seemingly be limited to a few social media posts. For example, in June 2012, in a Twitter back and forth with 051 Lil Mick, THF Trouble would list Lil Chief alongside the other 051 members who had been killed, the implication seemingly being that these people had been killed by THF, or at least their affiliates, as the third person in his list, Fathead, who would be killed in June 2012, has been quite strongly linked to THF's allies 600 and Lamron, even by the Chicago Police's own investigation. In another absurd tweet, when discussing the score of killings between THF and 051, THF member Keese would also list Lil Chief as a point towards THF, while once again claiming that Lil Tony had not been part of THF and therefore didn't count as a point for 051. But this cruel gang war was about to claim another victim, and THF wouldn't get to rejoice for long. In the late evening of July the 1st, 2012, 17-year-old Leonard Truss, also known as THF Black, and another unidentified individual were walking eastbound on the 45th from Cottage Grove when they noticed an unknown four-door vehicle come to a stop behind them. A gunman then exited the vehicle armed with an AK-47 rifle and begun shooting in their direction, firing at least 10 shots, one of which hit THF Black in the head, killing him in front of his home just before his 18th birthday. According to witnesses, the suspect had dreadlock-styled hair, a piece of information that would become relevant as 051 Young Money started claiming the hit on social media, linking particular members like 051 Lil Mick to the shooting, who later taunted members of THF by messaging them on Facebook and asking them to meet him in front of Black's house. But probably the most disrespectful post came from 051 MELLY, who joked on Twitter how he had heard that the bullets had gone through Black's nose and out the other side of his brain. 051 member Ario would also mention Black several times on social media. One particularly revealing tweet was in response to a female THF affiliate calling 051 out for not getting back for one of their members but only shooting a music video, to which Ario would respond by simply asking how you think it's Black World. The girl calling out 051 would then suddenly outright confirm that 051 did kill Black, and then claiming that Black didn't count as he hadn't actually been part of THF 46, and clarifying in another tweet how Black wasn't part of the set because he was innocent and not an active gang member, while also tweeting how she didn't care if the ops were 46K or 46 killers, as long as they didn't mention Gutter, Black, Quint or Carl, the implication seemingly being that these people had either been innocent victims of gun violence or they hadn't been killed by ops, so their names should be kept out of the dissing. But whether Black was an active member or not, he was clearly very loved by the members who would create the name Black World in his honor, a moniker they would often also rep on the music side, like THF G-Baby's 2018 track Witness, where he raps that he's from Black World and throws up bees in his honor, while some THF members would get a tattoo of a bee for the same reason. But of course, it wasn't just members of the THF grieving his loss. His family was too, one of them being his cousin, Aisha Truss Miller, who in the following year, followed by several shootings related to THF, would get the attention of then President Barack Obama in her effort to stop the escalating violence. As mentioned, while THF's main rivalry has always been with 051 Young Money, which is also the beef we'll mainly cover in this video, they were of course by no means their only rivals, with one other rivalry that had been going on at least since the very early 2010s being against the already mentioned Suwoo, or TTB, aka Train to Blow. This now largely extinct set, which was closely affiliated with 051, hailed from the Oakland neighborhood, and particularly a public housing project there known as the Lake Park Place on Lake Park Avenue between 39th and 40th Streets. On January the 29th, 2013, a group of students from King's College Prep sought shelter from the rain under a canopy in Harsh Park. They had just finished their final exams, unaware that two men, Michael Ward and Kenneth Williams, better known in the streets as Kells and Kenny from Suwoo, were in THF 46's territory looking for revenge. This was fueled by the fact that the previous year, as THF waged war against 051 Young Money, their feud with Suwoo had reached a breaking point. On the 27th of September 2012, members of THF had been driving near 40th and Lake Park Avenue, right where the Lake Park Place projects are located, when they spotted 17-year-old DeJuan Jackson, aka Suwoo Don Juan, walking home to his grandmother's house with some friends. It was then that a just 14-year-old THF member, Boo Domain, would open fire from the vehicle as they passed Don Juan, hitting him several times, including in the head. This time, the police would be successful in their investigation, and within a week, they had Boo Domain in custody for this senseless murder, and he would eventually be sentenced to juvenile life, meaning a 6-year prison sentence that would see him out on his 21st birthday. This murder, while largely going unnoticed by the city at large, would end up being a critical catalyst in the ongoing feud, and the reason why Suwoo, Kells and Kenny were out looking for revenge on that rainy day in January 2013. When they spotted that group of students sheltered from the rain at Harsh Park, thinking that they had seen members of THF, 18-year-old Kells would get out the vehicle, jump over the park fence, and fire 6 shots at the group, one of which would hit 15-year-old Hadia Pendleton in the back, killing her, while 2 other students would also be struck, but they would end up surviving. The harrowing incident was later recounted by one of Hadia's classmates to the Chicago Tribune.
And then I was checking my phone, and then I turned and looked around, and then I saw the guy hop the gate, and he was pointing the gun at us, so I was like, guys, we gotta go, but he had already started shooting. And so we ran down Oakenwall. Actually, the group like scattered everywhere. I looked over because we were going to the same place. I didn't want to get separated from her and all the commotion. And I looked over at her and I was like, Hadia? And she was like, and she started like screaming. She's like, I think I got shot. And I was like, no. I was like, stop joking. This isn't funny. Like, just get up, come on, we gotta go.
Meanwhile, just 15 minutes after the shooting, the alleged killers proceeded to pick up 2 friends who were walking home from school, but the atmosphere inside the car was anything but normal, and the 2 friends later testified to a grand jury that Kenny seemed agitated, his eyes constantly darting from the road to the rearview mirror, scanning for threats he believed were following them. During the drive, he went on to admit to sliding through THF's hood, looking for gang rivals to shoot before opening fire at the park, statements that would later be used against them in court. Hadia's death had become national news and was the center of a debate around gun violence in America. This was because only a week before her tragic death, Hadia had been in attendance and performed at President Barack Obama's 2nd inauguration.
Hadia Pendleton, 15 years old.
That's who that little girl was. I heard about this a long time ago, Chad. It was sad then, like how it's sad now. She had a promising life. Like any person that's trying to do good in life, man, I'll be rooting for them. You know, there's so many screw ups and so many mess ups in this world that like I can't really root for you. I guess I kind of do it in a sense in the drill music, but that's a positive outreach. But back to her, I heard about this so long ago, and to finally hear the whole story around it, kind of overwhelming.
majorette and her high school band gunned down in Chicago days after taking part in the inauguration festivities.
Her killing would inspire THF Black's cousin, Aisha Truss Miller, to create a petition asking Obama to make a speech in Chicago addressing the crisis of gun violence, which he would indeed do.
Most are young, black, and trapped in the grinding poverty of Chicago's gangland south and west sides, like Aisha Truss Miller's cousin.
They kill men, and I'm just like, this is not for real. Like, I'm not even gonna like acknowledge that statement.
She gathered nearly 50,000 signatures on a petition urging the president.
My boy Dolo with the 24 months straight. Appreciate you, Dolo.
To visit and address the war in his city streets. On Friday, he did just that, with a call for Congress to act on new gun control measures.
The experience of gun ownership is different in urban areas than it is in rural areas, different from upstate and downstate Illinois. But these proposals deserve a vote in Congress. They deserve a vote.
10 days after the killing, with that case dominating the headlines, Suwoo members met in order to discuss how to deal with the heat generated by Hadia's murder. However, it seems that some of the members may have seen the writing on the wall and decided to throw their two members to the wolves, because just a day after the meeting, both suspects were arrested. The arrest occurred just a few hours after the First Lady Michelle Obama had attended Hadia's funeral in Chicago, and she would later give a passionate speech about the similarities of her upbringing, which reportedly happened at least partly in the infamous O Block, and Hadia's upbringing.
And as I visited with the Pendleton family at Hadia's funeral, I couldn't get over how familiar they felt to me. Because what I realized was Hadia's family was just like my family. Hadia Pendleton was me.
Hadia's death would even be talked about by Barack Obama himself during his State of the Union address, which her parents attended. But while Obama had made a return to his old neighborhood of Hyde Park in Chicago, where he gave an inspirational speech at the Hyde Park Academy High School, talking about his plans for change.
Some people may not know this, but obviously this is my old neighborhood. I used to teach right around the corner. This is where Michelle and I met, where we fell in love. As you know, this week, in my State of the Union, I talked about Hadia on Tuesday night. And the fact that, unfortunately, what happened to Hadia is not unique. It's not unique to Chicago. It's not unique to this country. Too many of our children are being taken away from us.
The dire situation that Chicago was in was exemplified with another teen losing their life just 2 hours after Obama's speech.
When President Obama returned to Chicago last week to talk about gun violence, 14-year-old Destiny Warren was one of the high school students standing behind him. A few hours later, Destiny's 18-year-old sister Janae was shot and killed in this alley in North Chicago.
Hadia Pendleton's murder would momentarily make the war between Suwoo and THF known to the entire city of Chicago, as newspapers like Chicago Tribune would report about their years-long rivalry, while surprisingly still calling THF by its old name 4-6 Terror, which was likely a huge relief to many of the members terrified by the sudden exposure. Finally, after long court cases, the two Suwoo members responsible for the murder of Hadia were found guilty and sentenced years later, with the city making examples of them, as Kells the shooter was given 84 years in 2019, while Kenny the driver was sentenced to 42 years in 2021.
6 years ago this month, 15-year-old honor student Hadia Pendleton became the high-profile face of Chicago's rampant gun violence. She was murdered shortly after performing at President Barack Obama's inaugural ceremonies. Today, her killer, Mikael Ward, was sentenced to 84 years in prison.
Hadia Pendleton's death came to represent Chicago gun violence and the loss of innocent lives. Today, the getaway driver, Kenneth Williams, on the stand, he received 42 years from the judge.
But of course, while THF's war with Suwoo had ended up getting attention in the press, their rivalry with 051 Young Money was far from over. To the contrary, it was about to turn deadlier than ever.
Violence and the loss of innocent lives. Today, the getaway driver, Kenneth Williams, on the stand, he received 42 years from the judge.
But of course, while THF's war with Suwoo had ended up getting attention in the press, their rivalry with 051 Young Money was far from over. To the contrary, it was about to turn deadlier than ever. Few female gang members commanded as much fear and respect as Amanda Fitch, an 051 Young Money member who went by the name Big A. Members of 051 paid their respects to her as a feared and seasoned shooter whose alleged violent involvement in the gang war predated 2008. The YouTuber Trenches News, who lived in the area around Washington Park and knew of many of the people who would become legends in the Chicago drill scene, would later recount how Big A had hopped off the porch early.
Big A, she wasn't chasing it, bro. She wasn't chasing it. She was in it like it, bro. I ain't gonna need to say. I can't say she was chasing it. And she wasn't no product of her environment or none of that, because she was off the porch before a lot of them. All them, she was off the porch before.
Despite a deep, well-known hatred for the THF 46, she would occasionally be spotted strapped with a gun in their main territory at the Ellis Tower, aka the
Well, I thought you about to say strapped with something else. Now I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
4624 building.
46, like she really hated 46. She really hated 46 on everything. And she used to be up in a building, staying over there on Ellis. I remember I ran into Big A a lot of times on the Ellis Tower building. Like, for real, she a gangster with her pipe on her, bro. Like, for real, she was staying in the Ellis Tower building or visiting whatever.
On December the 15th, 2010, in the Bronzeville neighborhood, aka the Low End, Stephen Billups, a drug dealer, was at his residence when he received a call from a woman complaining about the quality of his product. Moments after the verbal argument, members of 051, including Big A, T Streets, and Chop, proceeded to purchase rubber gloves and a mask from a local beauty supply store, with the intention to rob Billups of his weed and money. All three would get buzzed into Billups' apartment, and upon entry, they announced their intention to rob him, casually telling Billups, "You know what this is." Billups made a move for his own weapon.
That's the robber's favorite line. You know what time it is.
It was the wrong move and ended up being his last, as Big A allegedly opened fire, shooting and killing him. With their target down, they would allegedly proceed to rummage through the apartment, stealing a half-pound of weed and flat-screen TVs before disappearing into the night. The case would go unsolved for a decade, until police eventually linked Big A to the murder. However, it wouldn't be the last murder that Big A was involved in, as she had allegedly participated in one of the biggest murders of Chicago drill history. As many fans know, L.A. Capone was a prominent member of the 600 set, who would also become their most prominent rapper, dropping numerous songs that are now considered drill classics. His talent attracted attention from major labels, including T.I.'s Grand Hustle, with discussions about a potential move to Atlanta to further his career.
I remember us talking and him asking me, "Mom, how you feel about moving to Atlanta?" And I was like, "Son, I'll go. You know, like, I'll go anywhere you want me to go. We can always come back to Chicago." I didn't have a problem with that if that's what he wanted to do to better his career. He said that Grand Hustle was looking at him, and another label was looking at him, and he was supposed to have a meeting.
Unfortunately, LA was also really in the streets too, and through his membership in 600 and affiliations with other sets like THF 46, LA had many enemies, 051 Young Money being one of the worst. On the afternoon of September the 26th, 2013, following a court appointment, LA Capone headed to a recording studio located on the second floor of 7040 South Stony Island Avenue in the South Shore neighborhood. Unbeknownst to him, an operation had been set in motion when 051 Rockhead had received a phone call informing him that LA Capone was at that studio. The operation involved two vehicles, a lead car containing the shooters, 051 Lil Mick and 051 Rockhead, and a tail car designed to run interference and block police if necessary, which was driven by Big A and another affiliate called Nico as a passenger. At approximately 6:25 p.m, LA exited the studio's back door into an alley, at which point the gunman, Lil Mick, snuck up and opened fire, striking LA multiple times. He collapsed in the alley before getting rushed to Northwestern Hospital, where he would succumb to his injuries. Afterwards, 051 weren't exactly shy about their involvement in the murder, and just hours after that shooting, Rockhead would make multiple tweets about LA that are still visible through other users' tweets that shared them at the time. He would troll about going to see LA at the hospital the next day if he made it, that anyone who was against the Black Disciples should get behind Young Money because they were giving the BDs the business, as well as taunting LA's good friend Tay 600, aka Tay Capone, by asking why he hadn't been there for his friend. Tay himself would also later allege that Rockhead had actually even tweeted about waiting on LA at the studio prior to the shooting.
I'm paraphrasing, but he tweeted like, "We outside waiting on Shorty to come out the studio." Cause I felt like that was another time he was tweeting some and I wasn't ready.
Tay also added that Rockhead's self-snitching was so revealing that by the time Tay and his camp left the hospital, they already knew the exact story.
Anybody, Shorty straight up, it putting the whole business out, folks. We knew what happened with LA, folks, the night LA died, bro. When before we left the hospital, folks, the story that ended up coming out a year later when all of them got arrested, we knew that whole story, 100% of it. That's what was told us. We had all those facts basically before we left the hospital, folks.
However, 051 didn't let up, and the next day, the alleged killer.
See, I hate that, cause I'm going to get facts straight the same night. Spilling and spinning and drilling and killing, nigga, I'm on that.
Of LA, 051 Lil Mick took to social media to suggest new LA Capone related names for 600, taunting them by suggesting they rename their hood Capone City or LA World. LA's death was a huge loss to 600 and their respective allies, and it wouldn't be long until THF themselves were calling out 051, with THF Gino specifically mentioning Rockhead and how he couldn't wait to catch him. Then, just over a month after LA's murder, Big A's own violent reputation finally caught up with her, as THF would allegedly do their part of the get back. On the 14th of November 2013, Big A had just picked up an unknown individual and stopped at a gas station on 66th and Stony Island, when an unknown gunman ran up from behind the gas station and fired multiple shots into the vehicle. Big A wouldn't make it, as she would later be pronounced dead at the hospital. The shooter, who was identified as having dreads hanging from his hoodie, fled westbound behind the gas station, and beyond this description, it seemed the police had very few other leads. However, official information would later begin dropping. In July 2014, 051 Ario, Big A's younger brother, was in police custody in a completely separate incident, when he would request to speak to the police regarding the murder of his sister. He would tell detectives that approximately 2 weeks earlier, he had received a call from THF BAYZOO, and at some point during the call, BAYZOO allegedly swore on his fallen brother Gudda and on his son that he had killed Big A, adding that he shot her through a fence at the gas station. This alleged quote from BAYZOO would sound interestingly close to how BAYZOO would swear about doing something during an Instagram live with another 051 member, MELLY.
On Gudda grade, you put me on the phone with Devin, and Big A repassed. This did not tell me that. Supposed to mercy on my brother, I'm lying. My son, your up on me, you saw me, boy. Time ago.
Moreover, there did seem to be a black iron fence at the back of the gas station, which was also clearly visible in police crime scene photos after Big A's murder, which police noted the gunman had passed through before shooting and fleeing the scene. Big A was a huge loss for 051, and even members from opposing gangs like Tay Capone would speak on her reputation, saying that the reputation that had been publicly given to the most notorious female shooter in drill history, the infamous KI from the STL EBT sets on 63rd, really belonged to Big A.
I don't know who the people keep talking about KI like she was just out here like, you want to know who people make KI sound like? Big A. And I ain't talking about Big A from O Block either. I'm talking about the dyke Big A from Young Money. Like that little dyke, like she was trying to do some shit, you feel me? That's why when she got caught, did her like they did her.
Later in 2014, 3 051 members who had allegedly participated in the LA Capone hit, Lil Mick, Rockhead, and Miko would all be charged for the crime, and they'd all end up receiving hefty sentences, while Big A would be mentioned in the police reports as offender deceased. But for 600 and their allies like THF, Big A's death was seemingly not big enough revenge, and in 2014, they would allegedly end up catching a much bigger target. When it comes to well-known 051 Young Money members, their most infamous member would likely be 051 Melly, who would make his name in the streets, as I discussed in my video that covered his
That boy right there, pure savagery. Give him some clap. He earned that. That boy, pure savagery. Yo.
Any alleged murders. But their second most famous member would likely be the rapper Lil Mark, whose musical ambitions became closely intertwined with gang rivalries that would ultimately claim his life. Unfortunately for Mark, he had missed the entire 2012 when the drill music scene had blown up to nationwide attention due to serving approximately 16 months in county jail and Stateville Correctional Center on weapons charges. But on February the 9th, 2013, he was released back onto the streets, returning to witness a drastically changed drill landscape, different and much bigger than the one he'd been participating in with his early songs in 2011, and now he was looking to take his place next to the globally known rappers from the opposing side of the gang rivalry, headed of course by O-Block superstar Chief Keef, who had blown up and become a mainstream fan favorite amongst hip-hop fans after his legendary run in 2012. So, wanting to get a piece of the action, upon his release, Lil Mark would immediately throw himself back into his music career with renewed purpose, releasing his song Ballin' Like Fats in March 2013, a tribute to his friend Fathead, the beloved 14-year-old 051 member killed in June 2012 while Mark was in prison. The track also featured none other than 051 Lil Mick, who was seemingly attempting to start his own rap career too before allegedly taking away the career and life of LA Capone. Mick's raps would focus on helping the Chicago police build their 051 gang matrix by shouting out several members of the set, whilst also specifying the illegal activities that these members be specializing in, and of course also dissing numerous dead ops like Shaq and Trix from 600 and Quint from THF, all names heavily rumored to have been victims of 051 members. Just over a week later, Lil Mark and 051 Mills would release their collab track, a remix of P. Rico and Lil Mister's drill classic No Lackin'. Mark and Mills would once again go, particularly after THF's allies like Lil Durk from Lamron and E-Day from 600, warning them to stop lacking, while also throwing a diss towards THF for good measure. The dissing would continue in September 2013 on Hang With Me, a remix of Lil J's original song, where Mark would continue his disrespect towards THF by using the name of BAYZOO's brother Gutter to describe the act of wifing up women who are promiscuous, an act that is apparently frowned upon in Chicago, as one genius annotator would elegantly describe. This period of productivity established Lil Mark as a significant voice in Chicago drill, particularly as he would focus on dissing many of the most famous rappers and sets in the drill culture. But as we know at this point, it also occurred against a backdrop of real escalating violence in the streets, with Lil Mick proceeding to allege
and see, I ain't gonna lie, when it started the drill,
shoot and kill LA Capone the very same month as Mark dropped his Hang With Me remix, and coming into 2014, tensions had reached a boiling point. Amid this volatile atmosphere, on March the 25th, 2014, Lil Mark released what would become his most famous and ultimately final song, No Competition. The track was once again a remix, this time of Lil Durk and Lil Reese's 2013 song Competition, which is itself a diss against their ops. But Mark would take the concept of dissing your ops on the track to a new level on this song, as Mark would begin his verse by naming and mocking more than 11 deceased rival gang members, including LA Capone, Baldy, Tricks, Lil Steve, and D-Thang from 600, Lil Mo, and Lil.
Man, and like when I first heard that song, I was oblivious. Like I wasn't oblivious because he was basically saying this, that, and the third, pack this,
Rob from
F this, and you know, but like the gravity of the situation wasn't there for me.
Amron, Taysky from D-Town, aka Tay-Town, as well as O.D. Perry, J Money, and even an innocent woman named Keita who died of an asthma attack, all from O-Block. He would also point to THF 46, rapping how his guys were doing drills and you can ask 46 what happened, a reference to all the people that 051 had so far allegedly killed from 46, including of course the 2011 killing of Tony McCoy, where Mark himself had allegedly been the trigger man. Even by today's standards, the track is recognized as one of the most disrespectful songs in drill history, and the release of No Competition placed an enormous target on Lil Mark's back. On the very day the song dropped, THF Dre Money made a tweet signaling that members of THF 46 were already on the move, saying that another THF member had told them to slide and that he was going to let the extended clip hit them, and that THF had a squad full of killers. The following day, one THF member would even post a picture from 051's hood, saying how nobody was outside, even though they were claiming to be. But of course, THF wasn't alone. They were part of an enormous coalition, now together with numerous other sets like 600, O-Block, NLMB, Lamron, and Folly Boys, and Mark had just made himself the #1 target for all of them. Just 24 hours after the song's release, the online threats materialized into real-life violence. On the following day after the song came out, Lil Mark was allegedly spotted by rivals and shot at, though he managed to escape unharmed. The suspected shooter was THF Twiller, who immediately took to Twitter to mock the look on Lil Mark's face, followed by emojis implying that Mark had run away scared, like he'd seen a ghost, even tweeting that Lil Mark had probably soiled himself when he saw him before running away. Even King Von shouted out the event later on Twitter, using emojis that implied Twiller had been doing a lot of shooting, clearly proud of his friend. In the hours following the failed attempt, the hunt intensified, as O-Block's main shooters King Von and T-Roy now actively tried to link up with 600's main scorer D-Rose, tweeting their intentions to meet. The following day, Von reached out to THF Twiller to link up too, and a few minutes later, Von was already in THF's hood. Then, around midnight on March the 28th, King Von was hitting up D-Rose again, who had gotten himself locked up on the 26th, but was now back in the streets, joking back in a reply saying that the reason he was arrested was because the police hated to see him sliding with Von, T-Roy, and others. They, however, were not alone, as the social media timeline showcased a widespread coordinated hunt, with THF J-Dog tweeting the previous day about his love for his team because they put the whole squad on the court with no bench players, perhaps implying that the whole set had been mobilized for the hunt for Lil Mark. THF Dre Money tweeted about being up, vamping, and turning up in the early morning hours of the 28th, and that he was really ready to shoot his ops down. THF G Baby also announced that he was going to pop back out on the morning of the 28th, and so did THF Dre Money. At 11:40 AM, THF Trouble would tag Twiller and mention that he was at home, but his guys were about to come and get him, as well as asking if Twiller was ready to turn up, before simply tweeting that it was Showtime, which perhaps had a double meaning, as Twiller was also known as Showtime Twiller on Facebook, a name whose origin we can only guess, but it was likely implying that Twiller was ready to perform when it mattered, and if Trouble hadn't been clear enough, he would make one more tweet saying how it was time to turn up, and that the whole squad was coming. I just want to take a second to appreciate just how crazy this is. I'm not condoning the actions taken by these gang members. Murder is wrong, and we've got to address the systemic reasons that guys growing up in these areas get sucked into the cycle of gang violence. And I say this in no way to glorify the people involved, but knowing what we know now, for you to be in the streets knowing that King Von, T-Roy, D-Rose, and the whole of THF are outside looking for you in Chicago, that is a scary sight. And it just goes to show you how much these guys hated Lil Mark, because they really got everybody off the bench and in the streets looking for this guy. At 12:18 p.m, THF J-Dog would tweet how some 46K diss was nothing to him, perhaps referring to Mark's song, before saying that if you're lacking like T Streets, THF was going to fill you up with bullets, before also tweeting how his friends were out lurking, warning his ops to not get killed while looking for some clout, which seems to be a direct threat towards Lil Mark and his recent song. Then, almost exactly 1 hour later, at approximately 1:27 p.m, Lil Mark was in front of a bus stop at 415 East 51st Street, a location that CPD had a surveillance camera on. This would capture Lil Mark's last moments, together with several witnesses, when suddenly a shooter armed with a handgun, equipped with an extended clip, would jump out of a vehicle firing towards Mark and hitting him multiple times, before jumping back into the vehicle, which was a silver minivan. Lil Mark was pronounced dead at the scene at just 19 years old, merely 3 days before what would have been his 20th birthday, with images of the surveillance camera that captured the shooting later being posted online, painting a grim scene that showed Mark's lifeless body laying on the ground in front of the bus stop, where all of the glass walls had shattered as a result of the shooting. But despite the brazen nature of the shooting in broad daylight, Lil Mark's killer was never officially identified or apprehended, and even years later, the case is still considered ongoing, with the Chicago police refusing to release any of their investigative files to the public. However, on social media, many of Mark's ops, the very people who had seemingly been out hunting for him right before his death, will begin pointing fingers directly at themselves. A video was posted on social media allegedly showing a group including THF Twiller, King Von, T-Roy, and D-Rose riding past the crime scene immediately after the murder.
Hey, so took off 51st. Damn, body down. Oh, that goes in the no. Tweaking, bro. Body down, 51st. Gang.
The news of Lil Mark's murder would travel quickly, and less than an hour later, a female THF affiliate would tweet how she'd heard a rumor of someone from 051 dying. A few minutes later, T-Roy would also tweet saying how he had heard how someone had died on 51st, likely referring to the number of the street, while asking who was it, but from his reaction, 5 laughing emojis, a gas emoji, a blue A emoji, and an NG emoji, spelling gang, it was clear that T-Roy very well knew who the person was. King Von would continue tweeting Die Y, shorthand for Die Young Money, and Twiller would make the most direct reference, tweeting how he was already smoking on the Lil Mark pack. D-Rose would also join the party later that night, tweeting how he too was sparking up the new op pack. But as mentioned before, those weren't necessarily the only people who were out sliding that day. Just days before, THF Gino had tweeted to THF Rome about having a van at his place, the exact type of car used in the murder. And crucially, Muma from the Folly Boys had been the first to seemingly reference the shooting on social media, tweeting out gun, smoke, and laughing emojis at 1:54 p.m, less than 30 minutes after the shooting. Only a few minutes later, THF Bob O confirmed who was shot by posting Lil Mark's name with a shocked face emoji, followed by an incredibly incriminating tweet telling his followers to check the stats and hashtagging THF. Then, not long after, THF Dre Money tagged an 051 affiliate and told them to check on your homie. In another insanely incriminating tweet, THF J-Dog would allude to having gotten a call that the ops were on 51st Street and that he gave the approval for the kill, while Bob O would seemingly allude to part of the motive for the shooting being Lil Mark's song, telling his followers that Lil Mark had no business standing on a bus stop after making a disrespectful track like No Competition. Now, it's of course not clear exactly who was behind the murder simply based on the tweets, but what seems clear, Lil Mark's death was likely the result of a days-long physical and digital manhunt conducted by a coordinated coalition of allied gangs. The highly suspect tweets would continue the following day, with one of the most self-incriminating of the bunch coming from D-Rose, who would make a diabolical tweet saying that he's going in no problem and that you don't even have to ask who shot him. The slaying of 051 Lil Mark was followed up by one of the most infamous diss songs in drill history, when about 4 months later, the rapper THF TP would drop the song Bus Stop, announcing it via social media with a clear message, dissing both Lil Mark and his alleged brother Tuka from the STL set, who had also been killed at a bus stop a few years earlier in 2011. This would start a trend of 051's ops making videos and taking photos at the very same bus stop where Lil Mark was killed at, which even Lil Durk would participate in a now famous video clip where he calls this bus stop a very famous place.
Bus stop, man. Hey, this bus stop right here though. This a real famous place. You hear me? This is a real famous place, B. Hey, this bus stop is a real famous place, B. I ain't gonna lie to you. You know what I'm saying? Free my team.
THF Twiller would also take a photo at the exact same spot, which is a particularly wild thing to do considering he had allegedly shot at Lil Mark days before the shooting and was seemingly also out sliding the day that Lil Mark got killed. Lil Mark, just like LA Capone's death had been for 600 and their affiliates. And while Mark hadn't yet done enough in the rap game to be considered a similar potential superstar like LA Capone was, he definitely possessed the most charisma on the mic out of all of the 051 rappers at the time, who would have at the time been their most likely ticket to making it out of the streets and into the rap game like Chief Keef did. Still, it seems that there wouldn't be an immediate get back for Mark. To the contrary, a few months later in June, 051 would end up losing another member called Polo, allegedly killed by a member of 600 called Lil Boo. But then, in September, THF 46 would experience another loss, but this time, the alleged culprits were not from 051, but from an affiliated gang known as 757. The 2014 murder of THF Fahim serves as a stark example of how complicated and often fatal the confusing gang alliances of Chicago tend to be. Fahim was a member of THF, but maintained a long-standing, cordial relationship with certain members of the 757 Alliance, a deadly coalition primarily made up of gangster disciples from 3 sets, including Rock Nation, aka Sunnyside, or Dolt Gang from the northern side of the Dearborn Homes public housing projects on the 27th and State Street, Lawless from the Lawless Gardens apartments on 35th and Rhodes, and the Ave located around 37th and Indiana, with the name 757 being a combination of the last number of each street, 27, 35, and 37. The 757 would maintain a strong alliance with 051 Young Money for years, and particularly after the murder of 051's main killer, MELLY, in 2019, when 051 and other factions would come together under the name MELLY Way, but more recent tensions have suggested an internal beef.
It seemed like the whole hood was shook when y'all found out about the MELLY Way stuff.
I ain't even gonna lie to you, gang. Don't be look, this our interview, this Sunnyside interview. Don't be questioning me about no Young Money, TTB, Geo Drive, none of that. You know what I'm saying? This our
Meanwhile, in 2013, the relationship...
I like his answer. His answer was accordingly. You feel me? This ain't about them. This is our shit right here. You know, I like that answer.
Between THF and 757 had little to no direct conflict, and THF Fahim's friendship with individuals like 757 Gutter was well documented on social media. However, the landscape began to shift as the war deepened and alliances became stronger, with one particular problem in the friendship seemingly being THF's increasingly close relationship with Lil Durk's OTF. Eventually, sides were chosen and tensions flared. Fahim himself tried to be a voice of reason, publicly reminding both sides of their decades-long friendships, but things began to escalate as THF became close again with a set known as OBN, a direct rival of 757, who they had been cool with in the past, but then had at least some kind of falling out with around 2013 before patching up the relationship in 2014. This all placed Fahim in a difficult position, and it seems he eventually fell in line with his set as the war kept escalating, engaging in the online disrespect that defined the feud. In one fateful move, he retweeted a post about smoking on a deceased 757 member named Cess from the Av set. A simple retweet had made him a target for murder, because for the Av, Cess was perhaps their most beloved fallen member, meaning that this was also major disrespect.
Mind y'all, if y'all know Tay Savage, y'all should know about Cess, bro. Hey, she's so thorough with it. She deserve a documentary of her own. It was her and Buddy, Bonnie and Clyde, no cap.
Towards the entire 757 alliance. Then, less than a month later, on September the 13th, 2014, Fahim was ambushed while walking in the Bronzeville neighborhood, and he was shot and killed on the front porch of a house after attempting to flee. 757 members, including his former friend Gutter, immediately claimed responsibility, citing the tweet about Cess as the final straw, and they framed his death as the repercussions for flipping sides. According to 757 Gutter, Fahim didn't stick to the rules, while online rumors and tweets from 757 members heavily implicated a well-known shooter named Rono in the killing. The tragedy of Fahim's death was compounded by a painful irony, as old tweets later resurfaced of Fahim's friend and fellow THF member arguing with Fahim about him claiming to be THF in 2013. The same friend would tweet after Fahim's death that Fahim was their friend, but he wasn't officially a THF 46 member, this yet being another occasion when THF would seemingly deny membership of their dead friend, the silent implication perhaps being that at least for some THF members, you were only an official member if you really put in work in the streets and slid on the ops. However, this certainly didn't mean that Fahim wasn't loved by some in THF 46, with even this same friend making numerous posts paying tribute to him and confirming that he was going to get back for him, and even calling THF with the nickname Fahim Gang. Meanwhile, 757 would take this as a chance to further troll THF, with one member tweeting THF to stop disowning Fahim and saying that he died for nothing, while also asking one THF member why his friends are disowning one of their own. Fahim's death was a tragic example of the consequences of this ever-escalating gang war on the south side, where old friends were ending up on opposite sides of the war as alliances were increasingly formed to have have the upper hand. In this war, it's easy to see in hindsight that there were likely no more valuable an ally in Chicago than Lil Durk and his OTF crew, who were making major money from the music industry. But unlike someone like Chief Keef, who took his best friends with him and got the hell out of Chicago when he became rich, Durk stayed allegedly very close to his neighborhood and was possibly putting that rap industry money to work so he could get the upper hand in the gang war. Unfortunately, that would also make people—
Man, Durk was using the untaxed money, man. Anybody that came with a brown paper bag with a 4 verse, he was using that money. Yeah, you can't what's your name? You can't track it.
People close to Durk, huge targets in the streets, and that's where 051 would allegedly strike next. As THF BAYZOO later admitted while speaking to Young Money's top shooter, 051 MELLY, on Instagram Live, the years 2015 and 2016 marked a period when their main rivals, 051 and their closest allies, went on the offensive, inflicting devastating losses that really hurt their gang.
15 and 16, bro, is where y'all went up.
That's when it was really cracking. They weren't really.
Oh, that's when it hurt.
One of the most significant blows occurred in early 2015. OTF Chino was a close friend of Lil Durk's older brother and Durk's manager during his early years in the music industry, but he was also a well-respected and beloved member of THF 46. In the early hours of the 27th of March, 2015, Chino was driving with a female passenger when she asked him to stop at a Stony sub-restaurant in the Avalon Park neighborhood, a location notably outside of any known enemy gang territory. The woman entered the restaurant while Chino stayed in the car, and moments later, an unidentified male walked up to Chino's vehicle and without warning, fired multiple shots into the car, striking Chino in the head and chest before casually—
Man, a Stony sub. What them taste like? What them hitting on?
walking away. Chino was driven to a hospital where he was sadly pronounced dead, and in a cruel twist of irony, he had been participating in an anti-violence event with Chicago's Bull star Joakim Noah earlier that same day. This is something that Durk referenced on his track with G Herbo called Real, rapping how he doesn't even try and stop the violence anymore because Chino died at a meeting. The execution-style killing in a part of the city where nobody should have even known him pointed to a professional hit, and online speculation later swirled that it was the female passenger who had set him up. Fingers were also pointed towards THF's chief rivals 051 Young Money and what was seen as a strategic 2-for-1 hit on somebody who was a member of both OTF and THF. The digital bragging rights began almost instantly, as 051 MELLY took to social media a few days later with ominous posts writing, "Rest up Lil Mark, I told you I had you, and I always keep my promises." The response from THF and their affiliates was also immediate, and they were suspecting 051, one of them tweeting the following day how they can't wait to slide on 51st and catch someone else slipping. The same member would also directly tag 051 MELLY and his crew, warning them not to be outside, as well as claiming to be willing to do 100 years behind bars in order to avenge Chino. 051 were clearly over the moon that they had allegedly murdered such an important person from the other side, and the disrespect that followed was calculated and brutal. 051 affiliate Mubu Crump famously visited the very same Stony Island sub and disrespectfully asked for a Chino burger.
I got that order for Nooski. Chino burger. Chino burger. Yeah. Y'all got it? That right? Oh, thank you.
I remember right here.
What's up? Y'all with that OTLK shit? Oh, man. Hey, this motherfucker focus as hell, man. Y'all, this ain't done, man. Y'all put this back on the grill, man. This is disgusting, man. Get this shit together, man. For real. Focus as hell, man.
This taunt became a go-to reference aimed at memorializing the murder of Chino, and it would even be used by his suspected killer, 051 MELLY himself.
Some of us remember what you did. Just like me a piece.
Yeah, Chino burger. That's what they said. Get the out of here.
Despite immediate vows of retaliation from THF members, their
Why nobody believed in him? That's crazy. Nobody believed
promised
in
get
him.
back was seemingly delayed, leading to public frustration within their own ranks and questions on what was taking so long, which was followed by further taunting from their rivals. But before THF could plot their get back, they were about to endure a series of devastating losses. As mentioned, THF Raheem was literally born into THF 46, as he was the son of Walter Armstrong, aka Walt Diller, member of the 46 lawn set that was perhaps the earliest precursor to THF 46, who was tragically shot and killed by a police officer back in 2005. Moreover, also mentioned, while THF's top rival 051 Young Money were closely allied with the STL set from 63rd in the Woodlawn neighborhood, Raheem was closely related to none other than STL's top rapper FBG Duck, and also in turn Duck's brother FBG Brick. And there were even old family pictures of Raheem, Duck and Brick all throwing up their respective gang signs as kids. To make things even more complicated, THF BAYZOO would get together with Raheem's mother at one point, and their bond grew strong enough for Zoo to start calling Raheem his son.
So who is THF or Raheem? That's like your stepson?
Yeah, that's my stepson.
And that's with you still with his mom?
Yeah.
With a family that had such deep ties to two of the most infamous gangs in Chicago, pictures of Raheem toting guns and repping his set at a young age are easy to find, and it wouldn't be long until he was sliding against the ops like 051 Young Money, as BAYZOO would later explain during his No Jumper interview.
Raheem was in the streets when he was young, when I was locked up. Like, he wasn't playing the streets that heavy when I was out here, you feel me? You know, when you a youth get older, your father originally from right here, your stepfather from right here, you know what I'm saying? This was gonna be in him anyway, you know what I'm saying? Sad that he gone, you know what I'm saying? It hurted me more, because it's like, I caught a lot of backlash from that. He wanted to be like me, but how he wanted to be like me and his father from here, you feel me?
THF Dre Money also made...
Man, I know what kind of heat he was catching, especially from his mama. You know, the dude moms was, you did this. You know, when someone loses a child, boy, I know it get real deep, real quick, man. You know? And mind you, dude was like 14 when he lost his life. Like 14. 14, bro. Some of y'all 14 now. Imagine just walking outside. Ending. You know, it's real wacky.
Made regular posts shouting THF Raheem out alongside other THF youngsters as shooters, tweeting that he doesn't move a muscle because his shooters got him, while videos would show a 14-year-old Raheem not only sliding on his ops with a gun, but driving a vehicle without a license. On May the 15th, 2015, at around 1:55 PM, 051 members were hanging on a porch near the 60th and LaSalle streets when a shootout would take place. Somebody would get hit in the right shoulder and another one in the head and leg, while a third man would reportedly be grazed in his leg too. A photo captured by the news featured 051 on the ground with his shoulder bandaged up and surrounded by police and emergency personnel, indicating that he had been the one hit in the shoulder, while photos of an injured MELLY in crutches were posted online following the shooting, indicating that he had seemingly gotten shot at least in his leg. With Aero though, some friends would later make more concerning sounding posts, perhaps indicating that Aero had gotten hit the worst. MELLY on the other hand would almost immediately be back on Twitter, taunting his ops and saying how that wasn't pressure, as well as saying how that headshot hadn't done anything, perhaps either referring to himself or Aero, while joking how his ops were using cheap bullets. When OTF member Twim would tweet "shout out to that headshot," MELLY would simply comment back with laughing emojis. THF members would begin to tweet at MELLY, joking how they were worried about him, with MELLY responding he was just fine, while another THF member would jokingly respond how he was happy to hear that. THF TP on the other hand would make some posts insinuating his possible involvement in the shooting, while responding to MELLY, who was calling THF and OTF feet shooters, as TP would respond by calling 051 the leg shot kings, before telling MELLY how he had pressed him, followed by some kissing emojis. But there had seemingly also been another shooter who is now considered to have been Raheem due to what would unfortunately take place next, because the very same night of the shooting, MELLY would make an ominous tweet simply saying, "You better go hide, boy." Then on the evening of May 24th,
Man, that's crazy. How did he even get his location? You know?
Approximately 8:15 PM, Raheem and a group of friends were in the Bronzeville neighborhood. They were leaving a Golden Fish and Chicken restaurant and walking near the 4400 block of South Cottage Grove Avenue, where a light-colored sedan, specifically described as silver, pulled up and an assailant fired 4 or 5 shots towards that group. Raheem was struck in the back, but managed to run into a nearby alley where he unfortunately collapsed and died at the scene. The following day, MELLY took to Twitter and sent a message telling THF to pick their heads up because they knew his day was coming, clearly insinuating that Raheem's days had become numbered after the shooting incident. Surprisingly this time, the Chicago police acted fast, and within weeks, they charged 051 Ario, real name Arias Fitch, with first-degree murder for Raheem's death. Prosecutors even stated that the shooting was an act of retaliation for the drive-by shooting that had occurred on May 15th, and that either Aero, or more likely MELLY, had allegedly been in the passenger seat when Ario shot Raheem. However, information not available at the time
Man, that's crazy.
would also reveal a much more personal motive, because as mentioned earlier, Ario also happened to be 051 Big A's younger brother, who had just been killed in 2013, and Ario had allegedly revealed to police that THF BAYZOO, who called Raheem his son, had called him and told him he was the one responsible for shooting his sister, Ario therefore having multiple reasons to want Raheem dead. However, MELLY's own statements and social media posts may suggest that he had in fact been the shooter, as he would later appear in a vlog with Zach TV spitting a bar about getting shot by someone, and 2 weeks later they were dead.
In smoke, we ain't doing. We don't know. I don't know what. We ain't smoking nobody. I got shot 2 weeks. He expired.
Around the same time, he also made a free Ario post while alleging that Ario had an
Nah, this nigga's sick. This nigga's sick.
actually done it, but kept his mouth closed after being arrested. This version may actually be true, because as the newspaper would note, Ario still had his left arm in a sling from the May 15th shooting during court, which means that Ario would have had to have been driving the car with one hand whilst also simultaneously shooting. Now that's of course technically possible, but perhaps not nearly as likely as MELLY, who had been hit in the leg, being the actual shooter from the car. As time passed, MELLY would keep making statements that implicated him in the crime, like continuously complaining how much his feet hurt while dissing Raheem for shooting him in the feet, posting on Facebook, "My effing feet hurt so bad, man. That dead man shot me in my feet all them effing times." In a 1-hour Instagram live with THF BAYZOO, MELLY would ask Zoo if he wanted to hear a bedtime story, before going on to recount the final moments of Raheem, a particularly disrespectful thing considering that BAYZOO considered Raheem like his own son.
Yeah, me too, man. When we gonna read you a bedtime story and tuck you in? Huh? When we gonna read you a bedtime story and tuck you in? Yeah. Tell you about this when he walked down this dark alley. He ain't make it to the other end of the alley. I was just reading the comments, bro.
Following Raheem's death, FBG Duck would let THF know on Twitter that he would be attending his cousin's funeral, tweeting, "Lil THF shorties better remember, that's my blood lil cousin. I will be at that funeral, so be ready to see my face. Period. RIP Raheem, family first." And apparently, in a rare showing of compassion and understanding, not necessarily towards Duck, but more towards Raheem's family, THF respected his wishes.
Yeah, we felt the way we felt about the type of though, but it's like, hey, what could you do if this family, we ain't finna do this here? You feel me? We not finna make matters worse. You
right.
Do at folks' funerals. Everybody in this guy. You feel me? The people who raised us, all people, aunties and grandmothers, everybody does. So we have to act accordingly.
The loss of Raheem hit THF hard, and in return THF would allegedly go after one of 051's original members. In the relentless conflict between THF and 051, certain individuals became prime targets because of the position they held in their set's ranks, and 051 T-Berg, a respected OG who had been involved in 051 since Zico was still alive in the mid-2000s, was one of the big dogs in the set. While T-Berg would seemingly not make much noise on social media, unlike some of the younger members, his reputation and long-standing presence likely made him a high-value target in the eyes of his enemy. On a Friday evening in June 2016, while standing outside the 200 block on West Garfield Boulevard on Chicago's south side, T-Berg and another 27-year-old man were approached by two gunmen who opened fire before fleeing the scene. T-Berg, real name Terry Bates, succumbed to his injuries, while his friend was wounded. His friends in the streets were devastated by the loss, and afterwards, his murder was openly claimed by a member of THF who seemed happy to tell the world about his involvement. During a heated Instagram live between THF Tracy and 051 Driller, Tracy would seemingly end up admitting to several crimes, including chasing down 051 member Rockhead in 2010.
No, I don't want no clout. I don't care about my
but
face.
I'm saying, you want the
I
clout,
never
you
seen you.
What type of
outside?
Hey, look. Hey,
Rockhead, I've been chased Rockhead. You was never outside of 2010. You went outside of 2013. On Kyle, you went.
He would also allude to killing someone who he called Terry Berry, a statement that confused Driller at first, as Terry Berry, aka TB, was an infamous member of Taekwon World who had allegedly been killed by O-Block as revenge for murdering one of their most beloved members, King Von's best friend, T. Roy. However, Drilly would seemingly catch on that Tracy was in fact talking about T-Berg, aka Terry Bates, and was simply confusing the names, another way of disrespecting T-Berg.
What are you talking about?
Oh, okay.
What you hear, Terry Berry? What you hear?
What
you talking about? What
hey, look,
hear?
man, you gonna go to
I
jail,
clapped
bro.
all y'all up there, boy.
You gonna go to jail.
So many from y'all.
The self-incrimination would continue to the point where even Driller decided he needed to kick his op off of live, telling his viewers that THF Tracy was going to jail for making those statements.
I stopped thinking about y'all because of Lil Mark told on me.
Oh,
if Lil Mark would never told on me, boy, I'd have been on y'all.
Oh, the guys, bro. He gonna go to jail, bro. What is he on? You gotta get off my live with all that.
T-Berg's death represented the massive loss of a foundational member of the 051 gang, but according to some rumors, 051 would get their revenge already the same year. In November 2016, less than 6 months after the murder of T-Berg, THF would experience yet another loss when their affiliate Trayvon Dickerson, better known simply as Trevon, was gunned down in the 6800 block of South Cornell Avenue. Trayvon would be found in a narrow gangway between residences, having sustained fatal gunshot wounds to the head and abdomen, and his murder, like so many in Chicago, remains unsolved to this day. However, in some online rumors, His murder has been attached to 051, and particularly their most prolific shooter 051 MELLY, who had allegedly killed Trayvon with another member of 051 called Tristo. A lot of people wouldn't buy this rumor though, with a lot of Redditors joking how online detectives like to try and pin every unsolved murder of MELLY's ops on him personally. But whatever happened to Trayvon, for THF he would be yet another person added to the long list of friends lost to the streets, and according to some rumors, THF would get their revenge almost immediately, as the next loss for 051 would come literally within the next few days. The animosity between THF and 051 and their allies went hand in hand with the drill music, and in November 2016, the Suwoo rapper TTB Nez will drop the now infamous track F the Ops Part 2, a fitting name for a diss track that went after all of Suwoo and 051's enemies. Nez dissed LA Capone, who had been taken out by 051 years earlier. He rapped about 600 member Stello, who was shot and killed in July 2015, and mentioned THF's slain member THF Black, rapping that he died shaking, followed by THF Gutter, who tragically shot himself by accident. Then he went after THF Raheem, rapping how this wild behavior had gotten him killed, adding that Raheem got crucified for THF going on the mission that wounded 051 MELLY and Ario, who then allegedly got back and killed him. And Nez would even mention that he had the opportunity to kill THF Tracy but didn't have his gun on him. Now clearly THF had seen this video as it was reposted on their Twitter, and THF Tracy even responded, calling TTB Nez's bar about almost killing him cap.
That man said that man just said he would have killed me if he had a gun. Who the f is you? Like I just what? Who the these man? These just came out some 2013. I don't know you, man. I don't gonna who y'all think y'all is or that. No.
The highly disrespectful track had clearly offended THF, and they were willing to do anything to teach Suwoo, aka TTB, and 051 a lesson. That lesson allegedly came at the start of December, just weeks after the track had been dropped, when 051 member Short Mac was walking in Cornell Park in the 5400 block of South Cornell. A masked gunman walked up from behind him and opened fire before running into a nearby car and driving away. This was a midday, broad daylight shooting in an affluent area of the city, yet the suspect, or suspects, were never caught. However, immediately after the murder, THF's social media started buzzing, and just a day after the murder, THF Rome posted a picture of Nuck, a fallen member of the THF 4-4 set, with the caption RIP. He also directly referenced lyrics from the track from TTB Nez, like the bar about Raheem, tweeting that he was putting people in their place, followed by an ominous tweet responding to a tweet by a THF member, T-Man, who had simply posted hashtag they forgot, with Rome responding, I think they did, lol. In yet another tweet, he warned the ops not to drop THF's name or they'd jump out and blow their brains, and he then alluded to the song by Nez being a reason for the drill, tweeting that these rappers are always putting their gang in bad situations. These tweets seem so—
Nobody say no when y'all get to dropping y'all raps. Nigga don't say a word. Dolo, what's going on? Niggas don't say a word when y'all niggas get to dropping y'all raps. Let niggas drop their raps.
So self-incriminating that years later they had Redditors questioning whether the Chicago Police Department even cared about solving these murders, as people had seemingly been basically confessing on social media right after pulling the trigger. The back and forth killing would sadly continue the following year, when 051 would allegedly pull off one of their boldest hits, although this time they would eventually end up going down for it. To understand what happened to THF Bobo, we have to go momentarily back in time to May the 1st, 2015, when Sorrel Marshall, a 40-year-old man from the north side, was—
Hold on, chat. 1 second.
walking a 20-year-old woman to her apartment in the Douglas neighborhood. It was a routine act of courtesy that placed him in the path of 3 armed men, Kamari Belmont, aka THF Bobo, Terrence Hogan, aka THF Sasa, and Khalil Powell from the Folly Boys. According to prosecutors, Bobo allegedly reached into the woman's coat, stealing her iPhone, wallet, and credit cards, while Sasa held Marshall at gunpoint. Unfortunately, in a life-threatening act of heroism, Sorrel Marshall attempted to deflect the loaded gun, causing Sasa to open fire, striking him 4 times in the groin. Still, as the trio fled in a grey sedan, van driven by Powell, a critically wounded Marshall made a last desperate attempt to stop them, throwing himself onto the hood of the car. He fell to the ground, and as he lay there, Sasa allegedly leaned out the vehicle and fired a fifth and final shot into Marshall's thigh. What began as an armed robbery had now turned into a brutal murder, but the group wasn't done. And just half an hour later, about 2 miles away, Bobo, Sasa, and Khalil allegedly robbed 2 more people at gunpoint, but this decision would prove to be their undoing, as one of the victims used the Find My iPhone app to track the stolen device, leading police directly to the suspect's grey sedan in the 500 block of West 43rd Street, with all 3 men still in the vehicle. As officers approached, the situation escalated, as THF Sasa, who had seemingly decided to go full crash-out mode that night, had allegedly lunged at an officer. The officer fired, striking Sasa in the arm and chest, and as Sasa attempted to flee, he would drop the 9mm handgun that would be matched to the earlier killing. All 3 were apprehended shortly after and charged with first-degree murder. For nearly 2 years, the case slowly found its way through the Cook County court system until January 2017, when a stunning legal technicality altered the course of justice, as court records revealed that THF Bobo had made a formal demand for a speedy trial, and on April the 15th, 2016, a demand that for some reason wasn't granted. As a result, the judge had no choice but to drop the first-degree murder charge against him.
As Kamari Belmont sat in Cook County Jail charged with murder, the clock started running.
We want accused people, we want victims, witnesses, everybody. We want them to have a speedy trial.
Prosecutors had 120 days to bring Belmont to trial under the state speedy trial statute. They didn't get it done and had to drop the murder charges.
At 11:12 p.m. on March the 6th, 2017, after posting bond for his robbery charge, Bobo walked out of the Cook County Jail a free man, but this freedom would be very short-lived. He was picked up by an acquaintance, and at 11:43 p.m., just 31 minutes after his release, while he was riding in a vehicle less than a mile from the jail, a white SUV pulled up alongside the vehicle, and someone inside opened fire. Bobo was shot multiple times in the back and torso, but he managed to get out and tried to run before collapsing in the street. Meanwhile, the suspected shooters would crash their SUV, causing them to abandon the vehicle and escape on foot, still somehow getting away without getting caught.
Minutes after Belmont posted bond Monday night and left county jail, someone in this SUV fired shots at the 23-year-old. He didn't make it to the hospital.
Internet detectives have once again tried to piece together exactly who was behind this hit, and general consensus all seems to once again point towards 051 Young Money, with some redditors noting the military-style precision of the attack, with many comparing it to a movie-style assassination, while others would point out how 051 are known for planning their hits meticulously, as they had also seemingly done with LA Capone. And when it comes to specific suspects, one man in particular would eventually appear as the alleged killer, dubbed by some online as the right-hand man of 051's most vicious killer, MELLY. 051 Rose had first gained attention as a prominent member of 051 Young Money when he appeared right next to Lil Mark in the 2014 diss track No Competition, where he demonically toted an automatic weapon throughout the video. Rose would have his own music career, even dropping full mixtapes like his 2014 Loose Screw mixtape, as well as collaborating with 051 artists like Driller for the track We Back, which would come with a music video that now has over 1 million views. However, Rose's music career would no doubt be stifled by his extensive rap sheet. His mugshots dating all the way back to 1999 showed that he'd been arrested over 55 times. Following the death of Bobo in 2017, Rose frequently referenced him in his lyrics, often taunting the circumstances of his death and the deaths of others.
Hey man, it's the reason why this nigga in and out of jail. I'm trying. Never mind. But God, 55 times is egregious.
THF members. For example, in his track Outstanding Member featuring Hard Knock, he raps how he gives out a lot of free smoke and people couldn't handle the Bob pack. In the disrespectful diss song Factors, Rose would throw disses towards numerous THF members, including OTF Chino, Raheem, Black, and Fahim, while also rapping how Bobo probably wished he'd never been released, a clear reference to his murder after leaving jail. Then in May 2020, there would be another arrest to add to his historical rap sheet, which would be caught on an officer's body cam, as Rose tried to avoid jail by doing the race, quite literally before realizing there was no escape.
I'm telling you to stop. I didn't do anything. Put your hands behind your back. I didn't do anything.
Go ahead, sir. You have the air.
Black hair, black dread. Right there, right there. I didn't do nothing wrong.
While in custody, police formally charged Rose with the first-degree murder of Bobo, identifying him alongside another 051 rapper Uchi as the shooters. Investigators would also identify a man called Kurt Mack, real name Curtis Posey, as the driver of a tail car used in the operation, a well-documented tactic employed by 051 Young Money in a previous attack, including the murder of LA Capone in 2013. Interestingly, Kurt was an uncle of 051 MELLY, and at the time of Rose's arrest, he would already be dead, as he was killed in 2017, according to some theories, by THF Rome, with some considering his murder to have been a get get back for Bobo. Unfortunately, since the initial arrests and charges, there have been little public information about the case's progress, but when it comes to the years-long war between THF 46 and 051 Young Money, it seems that Bobo would be the final casualty before there would be a years-long break in the killing. And of course, that's just a guess, because THF would by mean stop experiencing losses, and every year it seemed that they would lose at least one of their members or affiliates, including X-Man, aka Loco, real name Xavier Holmes, in a 2018 unsolved homicide, THF D-Money, real name Deshaun Rogers, in a 2019 solved homicide, and Breed, real name Tuan Thigpen, in a 2020 unsolved homicide. In 2021, on the other hand, there would be yet another national news story that would eventually involve THF, when the feds would famously arrest and charge 5 members of O Block for the murder of FBG Duck. Then in 2023, they would charge a 6th person named Ralph Turpin, also known as THF Teasy, who had allegedly been the one to drop FBG Duck's location to the O Block shooters after spotting him in the luxury shopping district.
That was crazy. RP Duck, man. I ain't side picking or nothing, but I just, when that news first broke, I was messed up.
In Chicago's Gold Coast, paperwork from the investigation revealed that Teasy had a grudge against FBG Duck over a past romantic relationship with the mother of his child. According to Duck's mother, Duck had been involved with this woman since 2017, long after Teasy and her parted ways in 2013.
Duck probably started messing with her in about like 2017.
And that bothered him.
2007, but she wasn't with him since 2012, 2013.
Then, in a moment of despicable spite, a wild and agitated Teasy made a series of fateful phone calls, which were even partially recorded by the security guard in the store where Teasy first spotted Duck. His first call was allegedly to THF Dada, but Dada's response was cautious, and he asked Teasy to gather more intelligence, specifically what car Duck would be leaving in. Unsatisfied with this approach, Teasy then reached out to a group that he knew would act immediately when hearing Duck's name, his main rivals from O Block. And here the story takes a critical turn, because when he contacted O Block, Teasy not only provided the location, but also allegedly fabricated a story, falsely claiming that FBG Duck had threatened him and that he was being chased and needed urgent backup.
This Ralph, bro, on the phone line, bro, said hey, bro, I'm finna do a real reenactment of how Ralph was. I you not, bro. Babe, let me get a phone, bro. Hey, y'all, hey, bro, they tried to kill me. Bro, they just tried to kill me, bro. Down, up here, bro, by Gold Coast. This Duck just tried to kill me. He ran up on me with a whole bunch of fo. Yes, fo. Hey, Scud, look, let me tell you, Scud. Even Kenny Mac, C-Thang, Muwap, all them was looking at Ralph T like you sent us off. You feel me? Cause so.
Oh God, he did. If that nigga wouldn't have called them niggas would have been still free. Duck would have been still alive. He sent everybody off, bro. And he just in jail looking stupid. Thinking he about to get some money. He ain't get $1. You know what I'm saying? Just stupid.
Now y'all know it was never a planned hit. It was never a planned hit.
This lie may have been the ultimate catalyst, and instead of a carefully planned assassination attempt against FBG Duck, who was by himself, no gang members, the O Block shooters may have believed that they were going on a rescue mission or combat scenario against multiple opponents, therefore perhaps answering the haunting question of why O Block mobilized with such extreme urgency and lack of critical thinking or planning. Within minutes, 2 cars raced downtown, and as Duck stood outside the Dolce & Gabbana store, the vehicle screeched to a halt as the gunman hopped out, unleashing a barrage of 38 rounds in a military-style execution that lasted around 15 seconds, hitting Duck 16 times and killing him. Following the murder, THF Teasy texted his baby mama in a text simply containing 3 laughing emojis. In 2024, the O Block members and Teasy would all be found guilty and receive mandatory life sentences in federal prison. But Teasy's actions would also seemingly be punished by his own set, who would disown him. And in interviews, high-ranking members like THF Lil Law from THF 44 would publicly deny Teasy ever having been one of them.
It ain't no THF Teasy. Yeah, let me say that too. Listen, I don't know who this THF Teasy character is or whatever. Y'all stop applying him with THF. Stop putting him. We don't know him. He ain't one of us. He ain't we don't know dude. Wherever he from, y'all keep it over there. They trying to. This is how I feel. I feel like 12 trying to...
This sad period in THF's history would be made even worse by the fact that THF Dada, the person who TZ had first called after spotting Duck, would end up killing his best friend and fellow THF member Gino, aka Trouble, in January 2021 after a tragic mental health episode. On the afternoon of January the 27th, 2021, Dada's mother would call police and report that her 27-year-old son had a gun and was hearing voices and experiencing a mental episode. Not long after, shots rang out in the 3500 block of South Cottage Grove. When police arrived at the scene, they found THF Gino dead in an elevator with multiple gunshot wounds, as he had seemingly been shot by Dada while attempting to help his friend. You would think that after all the death and carnage that THF have experienced, the killing would eventually stop, but it seems that in recent years, the war between THF and 051 has actually begun to heat up again, as both THF and 051 found new talents in the drill scene, THF with Lil Law from THF 44 and 051 with Kiddo, both surprisingly being older members who were part of the original drill scene but would end up doing long sentences and missing much of the action before finally getting released and finding new success in music, with particularly THF Lil Law doing some major numbers on streaming platforms. But before we take a look at what's been happening with THF more recently, let's first have a look at the life of perhaps the most best known THF member of all time, THF BAYZOO, whose career in both the streets and the rap scene spanned well over a decade, during which BAYZOO would both taste the fame and fortune while touring the country with Lil Durk, while also ending up beating a murder charge that dated all the way back to 2009, and if online rumours are true, that might not be the only murder that BAYZOO was connected with. Devonshea Collier, better known as THF BAYZOO, or Bebe, or Zoo, experienced a childhood defined by the harsh socio-economic conditions of Chicago's former Cabrini Green housing projects.
I was born and raised in Cabrini Green, man.
Right.
That's the near north side of Chicago, you know what I'm saying? My mother stayed in the projects. My grandmother, she stayed on Mohawk and Black Hawk.
A public housing complex constructed in the 1940s to accommodate war industry workers and veterans quickly deteriorated due to municipal disinvestment, poor maintenance, and systemic neglect. The area that they built Cabrini Green in had a long history of poverty and violence. It was formerly called Little Hell, named after burning factory smokestacks and crime that plagued its residents. It was Chicago's first slum, the birth of both the Chicago Irish and Chicago Italian mafias, during a time when gang members conducted broad daylight shootings with little repercussion. By the 1950s, the Chicago Housing Authority put in place Chicago housing projects all around the city, one of those being Cabrini Green. By the late 20th century, it had become synonymous with
CEO in this motherfucker, man. We just hearing about this crazy old Chicago.
Poverty, gang violence, and urban blight, earning a reputation as one of Chicago's most dangerous neighborhoods.
Perhaps the most notorious of the housing authority's so-called vertical ghettos was Cabrini Green. In just the first 3 months of 1981, Cabrini saw nearly 50 shootings.
My children have to go to school, and I will say I am afraid over here.
The cops, of course, they didn't really care. You know, these are black kids killing black kids, you know? One less black kid.
In 1981, Mayor Jane Byrne moved into these projects for a total of 3 weeks to prove to the city that with constant police present, crime and gangs would go away.
She was coming home one Saturday, and she said to the driver, "Take me through Cabrini." So as they were driving through, there was a paddy wagon, and they were putting a girl into it. She said, "Pull over and find out what that's all about." So they came back to the car, and they said the girl had been gang raped. She was 12. So Jenny said, "Well, I'm moving in."
Her point was indeed proven, as during her 3 weeks, many
kid, you know what I'm saying?
What's crazy is we've been knowing about these Chicago niggas since 2012, and every year we learned a new nigga and some new game for real. Like the MCs, it ain't my first time hearing about them, but this my first time getting in depth.
I don't really want too much talk about that on the internet or whatever, but a situation happened. I had moved southbound with my OG. That's why I really jumped out the porch and made my name for myself on the south side on low end, 46th Street, you know what I'm saying?
He would become a member of 4-6 Lawn, which turned into 4-6 Terror and 4-6 Hid Squad. The gang then linked up with the Mickey Cobra sets on 44th and Princeton around the late 2000s and eventually created THF, or Trigga Happy Family.
Cash Money and No Limit, they had their little rap groups and shit. You know how kids, when they little, they want to be something, you know what I'm saying? Like we used to hang bad as hell on 46 and Woodlawn, so like, it's a mosque here right there, right now, but we used to hang there 24/7. Like when we all meet up and come outside, meet me on Woodlawn, you feel me? So we went from 46 to Woodlawn, you know what I'm saying? Then we started hanging on Princeton probably around 2008. Like 2008, they're my brothers too, you know what I'm saying?
His involvement in the gang deepened rapidly. By his own admission, he developed a passion for crime during adolescence.
I'd been getting whatever was going on around me because it's like I wanted to see it, like, but I don't know why I had a passion for that. as a shorty, like all the crimes that was happening around me, like it was just a normal lifestyle for me because this is, I grew up in poverty, you know what I'm saying? Like
This incident marked the beginning of an extensive criminal.
So you won't get your witnesses killed or like that in Chicago, but I got the proper caseload for the simple fact I'm the victim.
But Barbara defended himself against the allegations, saying that he wasn't cooperating but just simply providing police with an alibi since he was already fighting his own murder case.
So what happened was when they asked Marty and G-Man or whatever, the two...
Really providing an alibi. These snitching allegations would cause THF and their allies to distance themselves from Barbara, and he would even get mentioned by a disappointed Lil Durk in an unrelated track with THF Lil Law, rapping about how he was hurt. Focus of the Chicago police may have been put on the murder of Dominic, BAYZOO would be charged with the following year. But what we do know is that after BAYZOO would beat his murder charge, eventually managed to get his case dismissed due to lack of evidence directly linking him to the guns. For BAYZOO, the situation was dire, as he was facing life in prison, accused of being the trigger man in a gang-related murder. To make matters worse, with BAYZOO incarcerated, his absence created a power vacuum in THF's hood in Kenwood, and the Wentworth District Commissioner would reveal in July 2015 that 3 recent Kenwood shootings were attributed to both the rapid expansion and leadership squabbles by THF and its members, which the police would continue to call by their old name 4-6 Terror. This also included a spike in recent robberies and shootings by the very same gang, and the district commander identified age to be a main driving line in the role that a member played in the gang, noting that the older members focused on dealing drugs while the younger were much more reckless and responsible for the robberies and shootings. Anyway, the prosecution's case against Zoo was built on witness statements that claimed that Zoo had approached Dominic Barnes, asked about his gang affiliation, then opened fire before fleeing. According to BAYZOO himself, 5 people got on the stand against him, but it was all hearsay.
It was hearsay from the jump anyway, you feel me? No eyewitnesses got on stand, but it's 5 people got on stand on me in trial. 5 people and I still came home to inshallah, you know what I'm saying? So like...
He would be behind bars for over 4 years trying to beat his case.
While I was in the, you know what I'm saying?
And what year was this?
When you... 2000, I believe that was 14 to 2018. I was in there 4.5 years by my murder route.
And then in December 2017, BAYZOO was suddenly a free man, with a tweet from Durk simply stating, "No more free Zoo," welcoming him home. His release came just after King Von also beat his murder charges, which would then inspire both Zoo and King Von to hop in the booth and create their collaborative track Beat That Body in May 2018. 2018 was crazy, and Lil Durk had both of his top shooters back out on the streets besides him. But just like in 2014, this association would eventually put all 3 of them in deep trouble once again. Over the years, BAYZOO accumulated an extensive rap sheet reflecting the harsh realities of growing up in the streets and the legal problems that come with it. By 2023, at just 33 years old, Zoo had already spent a staggering 12 years of his life incarcerated, a number that he said could be even higher.
You know, when we do our research on Zoo, and you know, we see a lot of different mug shots, you know, from a lot of different times in which you got in trouble. You spent 12 years of your 33 years locked up.
Maybe more, maybe less, bro. Like,
so law enforcement were already very familiar with BAYZOO due to his lengthy criminal history when they put him behind bars on January the 11th, 2019. However, this arrest was serious. This time, he was implicated in a murder stemming from a home invasion, a charge that carried even graver implications. The victim was Laurel Dobbs, age 28, known in local circles as Puda from the 047 Drexide faction, considered by some to be an extinct set that the older generation of THF used to beef with in the past. On the afternoon of January the 11th at approximately 3 PM, Dobbs answered a knock at his door in the 4600 block of South Drexel Boulevard, when suddenly 2 armed individuals forced their way inside. During the chaotic struggle, one of the assailants dropped their firearm, prompting the other to open fire, striking Dobbs in the chest and fatally wounding him. Police later recovered 2 weapons at the scene, linking the crime to a planned robbery gone wrong. On the same day, authorities apprehended 3 suspects, including THF BAYZOO, THF Trigga, who were both regarded as older, established members of THF 46, while the 3rd suspect would surprisingly be a 60-year-old man. Now, it's unclear whether BAYZOO was robbing houses with his grandpa or uncle or something, but in any case, the charges related to this arrest appear to have gone nowhere. However, for BAYZOO, his next run in the law would come incredibly shortly after, and this time it wouldn't only threaten his freedom, as he would get caught up in an attempted murder charge that would separate him from King Von and Lil Durk. On February the 5th, 2019, just days after the Super Bowl was held in Atlanta, a shooting occurred outside the Varsity, an iconic landmark and restaurant in Midtown Atlanta. The incident began as an argument between a group of people near the restaurant, which quickly escalated into violence. 23-year-old Alexander Weatherspoon was shot in the leg during the altercation and rushed to Atlanta Medical Center for treatment.
Story has it that they tried to rob a nigga that was flexing. Story has it that crazy stories about this nigga. I ain't gonna lie. Got this drop on this flexing nigga. He from Tennessee. What you think that's about, nigga?
Just talked to an overnight commander who says the only information they can confirm for us is that a man has been shot and he's been rushed to the hospital.
Surveillance footage from the area played a crucial role in the investigation, and the video allegedly showed Lil Durk firing shots from a vehicle, while King Von was allegedly seen on foot doing the same.
Might have been involved too, because I see a guy walking from that vehicle.
But if you see, like I said, when you're sitting in there, you can see something's going on in the back seat of that car.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you trying to do?
Let us zoom a few. Oh, sweet. Oh, man. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's getting out. He was tussling in the back seat with somebody.
Yeah. They're pulling him in, kind of.
So he was in the car.
He was in the car tussling with them.
He got hit already. He's trying to pull his own gun. Yeah. I see.
That car is still shooting and pulls off. And then that guy runs, pulling off. And then in a minute, they're going to run.
Oh, I see, okay.
Following a months-long investigation, warrants were issued for the arrest of multiple individuals in May 2019, including ZOO on attempted murder charges.
The judge determined that the rapper is not a flight risk and granted him a $250,000 bond. Lil Durk was in front of the judge today, and the rapper is facing attempted murder. Now, part of the stipulations for the $250,000 bond is he can't be near weapons, he cannot have contact with anybody involved in the case, and no association with gang members.
The cases against Lil Durk, King Von, and THF BAYZOO, and also a fourth rapper, AAB Hella Bands, stretched on for over 3 years without going to trial. And the turning point came in October 2022, after both Hella Bands and King Von had already lost their lives to gun violence years earlier. In a dramatic turn, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office under DA Fani Willis moved to dismiss all charges against Lil Durk in October 2022, citing prosecutorial discretion due to insufficient evidence.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has dropped all charges against Chicago rapper Lil Durk in connection to a January 2019 shooting near the Varsity restaurant in downtown Atlanta. Durk, whose real name is Derek Banks, was facing several felony charges. Although probable cause existed for the defendant's arrest, the decision at this time is not to prosecute. The DA's office cited prosecutorial discretion as the cause for dismissal.
THF BAYZOO later hinted via social media that his charges were dropped too, fueling rumors that Durk and BAYZOO had shifted the blame onto the deceased Von. However, according to Byron Blake, during his analysis of the paperwork, prosecutors had a flimsy case. The victim had a gun, and Durk and BAYZOO's legal team were claiming self-defense.
The alleged victim is the guy who was getting thrown under the bus. I can't even say he getting thrown under the bus because he snitched on them. He got shot, snitched on them, and they just played, self-defense. Hey, look,
While Lil Durk and BAYZOO emerged legally unscathed from this incident, their trouble was far from over. In October 2024, the federal arrest of Lil Durk for an alleged murder-for-hire plot aimed at avenging the 2020 killing of King Von sent shockwaves through his inner circle and the broader drill community. The investigation remains centered in Los Angeles, but its implication threatened to expose Durk's deeper connections to Chicago gang violence, potentially implicating key figures like THF BAYZOO and unraveling long-buried secrets. Durk's arrest allegedly also triggered a financial crisis for those dependent on his support, including members of THF and OTF. One member in particular, OTF Boona, recently got locked up for a murder, home invasion, kidnapping, and assault charges in Georgia after allegedly breaking into a man's house, duct taping his hands, demanding and searching his house for money and other items before driving to a church parking lot and fatally shooting the man 17 times. This would be an ironically tragic series of events, given that Lil Durk once rapped that he paid Boona just to not kill people. Rumors would spread online that this indeed had a financial motivation behind it, alleging Boona may have owed the man money for drugs, leading some to theorize that Durk getting locked up meant that all of the shooters around him had gone back to the trenches to do what they know best. But Redditors would also mention THF BAYZOO, with a post accusing ZOO of calling people broke on the net for the past 3 years, but suddenly going quiet after Durk's arrest, something that Lil Zay Osama would insinuate when speaking to academics, saying that ZOO was back out in the trenches and out of money.
But ZOO a good though, for real, ZOO a good. But he back in the trenches up wearing white beaters all day. Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is. He ain't do the right thing with the little money he was getting, man.
But others would suggest another reason for ZOO's low profile, the federal case against OTF. This silence mirrored Durk's own pre-indictment low profile, where he seemingly tried to clean up his image by doing anti-violence initiatives and promoting his conversion to Islam. This would seemingly prove true when on September the 5th, 2025, BAYZOO resurfaced in an interview with Young Will, where he adopted the persona of a reformed elder, speaking passionately about the corruption in the city and the need to uplift the community.
I just look at it like, we a big influential city all around the world, you know what I'm saying? So like, our city's so corrupt and it's built on so much hate. I just be trying to be different, you know what I'm saying? Everybody that I see that's going hard and going crazy, but you know what I'm saying? I just try to help them build their inspiration up more because, you know what I'm saying, I feel like our city need to be bringing each other up than everybody just hating on each other, man. Like,
this was a notable change from the alleged enforcer and leader of THF, who taught his shorties how to evade their ops after carrying out shootings.
Hey, look, Rick, for one, bro, us being put up off the 6, that's not terrorizing our block, bro. I showed my shorties how to be smart. We don't hunt and go hang on no block. That's why all y'all did.
And with THF BAYZOO distancing himself from his role as a THF enforcer-in-chief, it seems that THF 44, historically overshadowed by THF 46, would seize the spotlight by rallying behind their highly promising rapper THF Lil Law.
I'm from the low, man, the lower to go, man. The 4, man, 44th, man, you know, it ain't too safe to come down there. I'm from the 6 too, you know, 44, 46, the 9, you feel me?
And forcefully stamping their name into the new drill mainstream. THF Lil Law, also known...
Hold on, Jack. How you feeling today? I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great.
Known by his explicit moniker, F the Law, has been rapidly rising as one of the most buzzing artists in the Chicago drill scene. Lil Law emerged from the Trigga Happy family, specifically THF 44, the faction aligned with the Mickey Cobras and based on 44th and Princeton in the Fuller Park neighborhood. His affiliation is often symbolized by his THF 44 chain, though occasionally he also reps THF 49, which refers to the 4900 block of Princeton, reflecting THF's broader territorial reach. Drawn into gang life at just 12 years old, Law was pushed into the streets after losing friends and family to violence.
Say I jumped off the porch like 12, 13.
Okay.
Yeah, like 12, 13. Say I jumped off the porch. I got in the middle of, you know what I'm saying, what I could do at that time, you know what I'm saying? Honestly, I'm gonna say deaths, close people took me down, cousins, you know what I'm saying?
As he noted in an interview, when fistfights turned to gunfights in Chicago during the 2010s, he had to adapt to it.
A lot of people who from Chicago know, like, I'm gonna say 2010, 2009, everything changed from when we was fighting to ain't no more fighting, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, you gotta get with the times or you gonna, you know what I'm saying? In Chicago, you either gonna get with it or you gonna get it.
This adaptation allegedly included him becoming a shooter for THF, a role that cemented his reputation, but also entangled him in the justice system. And just as he was getting into music, his legal troubles began. In November 2015, the same month he dropped the track Twitter Beef with O-Block's Prince Dre, he was arrested on 2 attempted murder charges, but ultimately pleaded down to aggravated battery with a firearm and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. It was during this incarceration that he truly started rapping, and unlike many drill artists who blur the lines between gang and label, Lil Durk being the main example, Law would demonstrate a strong business sense upon his release, as he went on to found the Handler family, a music label intentionally distanced from the Trigga Happy family gang despite having the same initials.
The Handler family, man. THF 4446, man, the 9. Yeah. Can't forget that neither though, you feel me? But yeah, we THF is, a lot of people probably think it stands for some other shit, you know what I'm saying? But we really, right now, we really on business though, as far as like pushing the guys who come behind me. Yeah, we just handling it.
Despite being barely 3 years into his promising musical career, Lil Law has rapidly ascended within the drill scene. However, as history has shown, with the biggest artists in THF and OTF, commercial success in drill music often hinges on maintaining street credibility, and unfortunately, many drill rappers choose to stay active in the streets when they get popular enough to leave them behind. Whether because they don't know that it's good for their brand, or perhaps more likely they just don't know how to quit something that's been part of their whole lives. True to this pattern, Lil Law didn't remain on the sidelines for long, and his re-entry into the music industry also placed him swiftly.
Man, I don't know who said this, but nigga said I'm that On the Run documentary. I may be up 2-3 million and see a nigga with 50,000 and be like, that nigga got 50,000 to it. He was talking about robbing dude. Yeah, they don't know how to quit.
Back in the crosshairs of his ops. In the late evening of June the 30th, 2022, police responded to a call of shots fired at the 4624 South Ellis Avenue within THF 46's territory. Upon arriving, they found 051 Young Money member, who also happens to share the nickname Lil Law, dead on the sidewalk. Lil Law, real name Lawrence Longstreet, had a fatal gunshot wound to his chest, while a second victim, a woman, had been injured in the shooting but ended up surviving. Witnesses told officers the suspect ran into an alley and drove away in a grey SUV, and reports noted that a firearm was found in 051 Lil Law's possession. When the news hit the net, many people had questions about what exactly an 051 member was doing in the heart of THF's territory, with one rumor being that he was visiting family, while another, perhaps a more likely theory, was that 051 Lil Law was actually sliding on THF. It would be a woman with alleged inside knowledge that would give some answers, alleging that 051 Camion, 051 BA and 051 Driller had been with him during a shooting but left him behind.
I'm laced because BA, Driller, and Camion, they left Lil Law, and they keep trying to make it seem like, you know, that's not the case, right? Right?
Following the death of 051 Lil Law, THF members would immediately start dissing. THF Space would troll 051 by announcing a candlelight for Lil Law and telling people to DM him for the location. Another THF member reposted the news with the caption, "Don't come on the 6 doing dumb stuff." And even someone from Lamron would post about 051 Lil Law going down bad. A month after 051 Lil Law lost his life, THF G-Baby released the track Fresh Out the Box, where he would rap how the last person that tried sliding through his hood lost his life, while THF Rome seemingly confirmed who that person was by posting a picture of 051 Lil Law with the caption, "Last Dude." THS Lil Law, on the other hand, also rapped about his 051 counterpart's death in a freestyle, mentioning someone coming to THF 46's hood and getting spanked with a Gucci belt. Some Redditors would point out how much of the dissing towards 051's recent fallen member came from THF Lil Law and THF Kino, therefore pointing fingers towards them being responsible. This included a 2024 Instagram Live where 051 Camion, one of the alleged people that was sliding with 051 Lil Law the night he was killed, joined THF Kino's Instagram Live. During the live, Kino immediately began talking about how some people are good shooters on the basketball court, but in THF's hood, they haven't scored yet, a likely reference to 051's recent failed attempt at sliding on THF's territory.
I heard nice in the gym, but out here ain't score a bucket. I heard nice in the gym, but out here ain't score a bucket. What you talking about?
Then in 2024, on his song I'm a Handler, which would become THF Lil Law's biggest hit by far, he would directly rap about 051 Lil Law's death, rapping how he was the only Lil Law left because the other one got handled. He also seemingly confirmed the rumor that 051 Lil Law was sliding before adding that he can't slide no more. Interestingly, THF Lil Law would even call out Reddit for putting the body on him, a reference to the fact that commenters on Reddit had long theorized that THF Lil Law and THF Kino were responsible, with this lyric having members of the Chiracology subreddit questioning if they should slide on THF after being dissed. But moreover, the lyrics were perhaps even indicating that he had actually been taken into questioning about 051 Lil Law's murder, claiming that detectives had told him that they heard that he did the murder on Reddit. But the craziest part about I'm a Handler was undoubtedly the music video, which came with an absolutely crazy intro showing that the ops had allegedly shot up the music video shoot during what sounded like an actual war zone, as switch after switch was seemingly let off on both sides as the cameras kept rolling. But despite him going after the Reddit detectives, THF Lil Law kept playing with the rumors and would continue trolling, like liking a post made about 051 Lil Law on Instagram in 2025. With the death of 051 Lil Law, many expected the get back to be swift and immediate from 051 Young Money's end, but instead soon after, they would end up suffering another devastating blow. In September 2022, just 1 month after the death of 051 Lil Law, 28-year-old Kareem Nelson, better known as 051 Remy, a respected OG of 051, was shot and killed in the backyard of a residence on the 6700 block of South Eberhart on Chicago's south side. Initially believed to be another casualty of war in 051 and THF's never-ending cycle of violence, the killing was ultimately linked to two suspects called Lil Wop and 75 Trigga. Lil Wop was from OTV, a ruthless Mickey Cobra set based in the Dearborn Homes projects on 29th and State, who actually share that project complex with their main ops, 757. OTV had allegedly killed 4 people in the span of 2 months in retaliation to losing one of their members a while back, and maintained a deep-seated hatred for 051 Young Money despite being located outside their immediate territory.
Shout out 800, shout out Snake Numb on the pill.
The 5 finna pop out. Y'all finna.
I ain't even gonna say their name, but they got the belt.
Playing a lot of Cobras, man. All Cobras welcome.
We with all the snakes except for Young Money. Die wide.
OTV was closely allied with THF 44 and THF 46.
It's all love.
Okay, same with like THF 44 now?
Oh yeah, now that's better than what I've been like. We always over there on that.
The other alleged shooter, 75 Trigga, represented Rawtown, another Mickey Cobra faction from 75th and Chapel, and has recently been gaining a bit of notoriety on social media for his wild stunts, from doing trick shots with perks.
Another tape.
Post-credit scene.
To smoking on innocent people killed in shootings, and even having a story collection on his Instagram simply titled Dead Ops, which features him broadcasting his dead ops on his living room TV. 75 Trigga also represents the Mickey Cobra snakes to the fullest, rocking green hair and a green face tattoo, and even sliding through the Chicago streets
Nah, this nigga right here is unhinged.
Toting guns with green switches, with one Redditor joking that he probably moves around making hissing noises like a snake too. But while 75 Trigga may be an alleged killer, he's also a vegetarian, which he tried not so eloquently to explain to DJU.
I'ma give you the shortened version. So basically, we eating more animals than the animals and making more animals. So they making the new meat that y'all eating, that y'all eating. They making the new meat that y'all eating us. And they said they trying to save animals so we don't run out of animals in the world. And that was enough for me.
Anyway, following the murder of 05
when your homie high trying to tell a story, pass the blunt, nigga.
051 Remy, OTV members engaged in a startling campaign of social media bragging, with one member posting a caption saying Remy got killed and 051 ain't do anything, while another member would rap on Instagram Live how Remy got dealt with and take out the trash.
Hey, she just sucked me. She ain't.
ENG Gennaro, he gifted a sub. I appreciate the gifted, Brody.
Got no with me a goofy, got his down, try to take out trash.
An incriminating thing to know, considering him getting killed while taking out the trash may not have been public knowledge. OTV member JD would also find a creative way to claim OTV's alleged bodies by using emojis, with one post including an emoji of a man taking out the trash, clear reference to the death of 051 Remy. Then in May 2023, during an unrecorded Instagram live session that was widely discussed on both Chiracology and Chirac Hits pages on Reddit, 75 Trigga allegedly admitted to killing 051 Remy directly. OTV continued to claim responsibility through their music as well, with member 2 Prince releasing a song titled No Hook, where he rapped how, since Remy just got killed, people can't say OTV isn't sliding. Members from THF like Kino also joined in on the dissing, mocking 051 Remy, likening him to a bottle of Remy Martin cognac, and saying that his bottle broke.
Get that Remy. Oh, bitch, Remy bottle broke.
But following the murder of 051 Remy, THF's toughest months were just ahead of them. In April 2023, THF lost a member called Fatboy in a shooting, which took place inside a home, which was followed by another member named JJ losing his life in August, and a rising THF rapper named T Shooter later that month. Then in September 2024, it was once again 051's turn, when a man was fatally shot and a woman critically wounded on the 7400 block of South Kimbark Avenue.
Police say gunfire started just before 9 this morning at 74th and Kimbark in Grand Crossing. A man and a woman were in a car when a white sedan pulled up. Police say 3 people got out and started shooting. The man died, and the woman was taken to a hospital. No arrests have been made.
The man would later be identified as 051 Mills, a long-time respected member of 051, while the woman that was critically injured in the professional style hit was his sister. 05 Mills at the time was considered by many to be 051's biggest loss in a long time, with pictures of 051 Mills together with 051 members like MELLY and Fathead dating all the way back to the 2010s, while Mills had even featured on Lil Mark's 2013 drill classic No Lackin'. It wouldn't be long until members of THF responded via social media. A subliminal post from THF Sosa around the same time that Mills died would include a kissing emoji, seemingly taking place before authorities had even publicly identified the victim. Another story from another member simply included the caption "Good morning" with the laughing emoji, while other members would comment RIP to a fallen THF 44 member, Nuck, who just happened to have died on the same day in 2015, with THF Kino posting that Mills getting hit on Nuck Day is crazy. The reason behind the shooting, according to one comment on a Truth Teller video reporting on Mills' death, was that 051 Mills had been shot in retaliation for shooting up THF Lil Law's I'm a Handler music video. A comment that may have seemed far-fetched at the time, but less than a year later, confirmation would seemingly come from THF Lil Law's begrudged baby mother, who in July 2025 began a mad tirade using THF Lil Law's Instagram account to post a series of highly incriminating Instagram stories, with one story caption reading, "I can't wait till the police catch you for them murders, bitch," which was followed shortly by another where the caption read, "What happened to 051 Mills?" Now it's possible THF Law had been doing some young thug pillow talking, because these are some wild accusations for the mother of your child to make, but she wasn't done. Not only did she want THF Lil Law locked up, she seemingly wanted him dead, as her next diabolical post would give his home address and read, "That's where he's living at." Now, whether or not she was being completely honest, this definitely wasn't a good look. Her revelations exposed potentially damaging information about THF's activities, making it easy for anyone interested to connect the dots. The loss of an outstanding member such as 051 Mills guaranteed retaliation, and members from 051 and affiliated Geo
That was a lot. She was doing a lot of talking. She gave up a nigga whole address. It's crazy.
Drive set all paid their respects while promising get back. But one of the first to indicate that they were actually sliding would be 757, who were willing to put their recent tensions with their old allies 051 behind them to get back for 051 Mills. Just months later, on Christmas Eve, the brutal aftermath of that get back would be captured by a bystander as another THF member would be taken out.
Oh my God. He just got shot in the head. Oh my God, he got shot in the head.
This time, it was THF Finesse, who would be sitting in the car with his younger brother THF Space, when someone walked up to the vehicle and shot Finesse in the head at point blank range, leaving THF Finesse in a coma. There would be numerous posts confirming that this was allegedly 757's work, and just days later, 757 would confirm that THF was getting the belt.
Hey, you hear me, please? Hey, they been getting the belt.
All type of alligator
leather belt with the. Hey, you hear me? Hey, you hear me, gang? This the belt you used to get off 47 with your name on it.
This got dinosaur skin on it.
Then, on February 13th, 2025, a back and forth between THF Space and 757 Lil K would get very disrespectful. 757 rapper Lil K would have a back and forth on IG Live with THF Space in the comments, during which Lil K called his brother a vegetable.
What you talking about? Your brother finna be a vegetable for the rest of his life. What you talking about? Head tap, turn into a veggie. head tap, turn into a veggie. Y'all ain't noticed y'all ain't been seeing other space. Yeah, head tap, turn into a...
He would even allege that he knows who did that to THF Space's brother and asked why THF hasn't gotten back yet.
I know. Who did that to your brother? Talking about why y'all ain't get back. Y'all ain't get back, and that happened what? Like a day before Christmas or something. It's February. You talking about?
The conversation would even get to the point where THF Space would call Lil K the police. Then in April, we would get an update from THF Space himself about his brother's condition, as he would let people know that his brother had just come home from the hospital.
And now you want me to die? Is my brother good? Hell yeah, he just came home. You know that?
This was just another tragic incident in a long-running feud that had plagued these two gangs for more than a decade. But while the war between 051 and THF would now continue strong, only this time seemingly...
So, this editor Snore right here. I just wanted to say I appreciate whoever made it to the end of this video. That's much love. Now we ain't finished the video. This was a part about TP, and I already did like 2-3 videos on TP. I don't want to hear it again, bro. But if you wanted to go see that part, I left the original link for it down in the description. Also, if you made it to the end, put ring in the comment section. Oh, mind y'all, we already gave away a ring. This is gonna be ring number 2. You see the holes? You see the holes? Those are for diamonds. Yes, I told y'all we running back the giveaway on the merch store, so go cop some merch. Boy, Snore, I'm gone.